Right on the hour. I kick it twice, right? Sweet.
Tolos, who is in and who is out? What do I mean by that? The college football playoff predictions. It is time, ladies and gentlemen. So good to be with you. I'm Cole Bryson. This is Wire to Wire on the Fan Upstate. An incredible day to talk some sports on this Thursday edition of the program. College football playoff predictions. Get in on the conversation right now. Get your phones out. If you're on the stream, get in the chat. It is go time, 7 through 12 right now. And then a little bit later in the program, I will give you my 1 through 6. But I am going to do my best of predicting the college football playoff in 2024, the most anticipated college football season, I believe, in a very long time. Everybody thinks they have a shot. Everyone has a feeling of hope. Everyone has the sense that they can, for the first time ever even, enter the college football playoff. Who do you think will make it? Who do you think will be on the outside looking in? As I made my predictions, I will be honest with you. I will be quite frank with you. I struggled in certain areas. There were certain areas, certain teams rather, that I really struggled with. And I'll get to those in a second. However, in order for us to predict who's in the 12-team college football playoff, we first have to address who wins each conference, correct? If you did not know, I'm going to set the table, set the scene for you. Here's who gets in to the college football playoff. The SEC champion, the ACC champion, the Big Ten champion, the Big 12 champion, 7 at-large bids, and the highest-ranked G5 champion. Now, I also struggled in that area as well. That, to me, is one of the least talked about but most fascinating areas of this new 12-team playoff is the G5 champion. I believe that it's a lot more wide open in the G5 landscape than people think. So let's start with the absolute best of the best. Again, if you just tuned into the program, I am giving you my college football playoff predictions. In this segment, I'll give you 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Later on in the program, I'll give you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Stay tuned. Turn it on. Leave it on. A big program coming your way. Kelly Ford of Kelly Ford Ratings joining the program at 4 o'clock. Also, talking a little fantasy draft later on in the program as well. And we'll talk a little high school football in the 6 o'clock hour with the head football coach of the Gaffney Indians, Dan Jones. So a loaded show coming your way. But let's set the table. Let's decide first, before we start ranking, let's decide who gets in. And let's start with the SEC champion. I believe that this year is a year that's unique for several reasons. One of the reasons I think it's unique is because in the SEC, it is almost unanimous that Georgia will be the SEC champion. I'm not going to be hot take guy today. I'm not going to try to push a narrative that I don't believe. I, too, believe the Georgia Bulldogs will come out of the SEC. ACC. This is where I had to do a little thinking today. This is where I had to put on my thinking cap. And I want to tell you that I have made a change before the season starts to my official predictions for Clemson, Miami, Florida State, as well as South Carolina. I have made a few minor changes. I'll get to that in a little while, but the reason I tell you that is ACC champion, I think it is Clemson. I think it is Clemson in 2024. So I have Georgia in, Clemson in as the ACC champion. I'll tell you why coming up in the program. Big Ten champion, Ohio State. I've said it numerous times the last few weeks. I believe I said it yesterday. Ohio State, in my mind, has a very good shot at winning the national championship, or at least playing in the national championship. I think Ohio State and Ryan Day this season will be very, very good, especially in the trenches. So I have Ohio State, Clemson, and Georgia in thus far. Where do you agree? Where do you disagree? 71307. Start your text with the word fan. Excuse me. Big 12 champ. Man, the Big 12 champion was something that I had to meditate on for a little while. I don't know if, like with the SEC, how we all can say without a shadow of a doubt Georgia's the SEC champion. I don't know that we can say that about the Big 12. Yes, according to Vegas, Utah is the favorite. Kansas State is right behind them. Oklahoma State could be a sneaky team. Maybe Kansas could be a sneaky team in 2024. But I think the Big 12 is interesting this year. And no, I don't have Colorado as a contender. So I have Utah coming out of the Big 12 as the Big 12 champion, getting into the playoffs. So there's my four champions from the SEC, ACC, 10 and 12. Georgia, Clemson, Ohio State, and Utah. Brian on the YouTube stream chimes in and says, good afternoon, Cole. Brian, what's up, man? Good to have you along. Good to have you in the YouTube stream. Rowdy Tiger on X chimes in. Rowdy Tiger says, Georgia beats Alabama in regular season, but Alabama beats Georgia in SEC championship. Wow. That's a bold statement, Rowdy Tiger. Could it happen? Sure. I don't know, though, man. I don't know that Alabama gets to the SEC championship. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Don't forget, Texas is now in the SEC. That's all I'm saying. The Longhorns might have something to say about that, Rowdy Tiger. All right. I'm going to give you my highest-ranked G5 champion and then my 7 at large. Because the 7 at large is where I struggled a little bit in these college football predictions for the playoff. Oh, man. I have Boise State getting in as the highest-ranked G5 champion. Spencer Danielson, the head coach, he showed that he has a lot of potential. He showed a lot of promise as the interim head coach. They won the Mountain West title in 2023. Spencer Danielson and Boise State return an expected 18 starters to the field this year, including tailback Ashton Jeanty, the league's top rusher, by the way, and one of college football's best at that position. Malachi Nelson steps in at quarterback after transferring from Southern Cal, but the area I do have concern with Boise State is the run defense. The defense was average a year ago, especially against the run. Those guys also struggled in the secondary. They have a game early against Oregon that will be monstrous. And I mean monstrous for Boise State. However, I do think Boise State's the G5 champion. So that puts in Georgia, Clemson, Ohio State, Utah, and Boise State. That's 5. That leaves 7 at large. And here is where, here's where I really struggled. And I would love to hear your feedback on these 7 at large. Because just to be quite frank, I think several situations could go either way, especially when you talk about teams like Miami, especially when you talk about teams like Missouri. You say, Cole, Missouri? Where'd Missouri come from? Missouri playoffs? You think they'll be that good? Well, it's less about how good they will be for me and more about their schedule. We've discussed that already this year. Diesel and I talked about that several weeks ago. Missouri's schedule, if they are as good as advertised, their schedule sets up for them to have a good season. So my 7 at large goes like this. I think Texas is a lock. Texas has a legit shot to win the SEC. But like I told you, I'm going Georgia to win the SEC. So Texas gets in as an at-large for me. Another SEC team, Alabama. I've said it once. I've said it a million times in the last month. I don't expect Alabama to take a back seat this year like a lot of people do. Will they be the Alabama that we're used to seeing? I don't know. But I don't expect them to take a back seat to anybody. They're still going to be very competitive in just every single game that they play. My next team, Oregon. Oregon's a surefire lock to get into the playoff for me. Oregon and Ohio State, I talked about it yesterday. That is an October 12th game. I told you to mark your calendar for that game. Oregon, Ohio State, one of them will be the Big Ten champion. The other one will still get in my opinion, in the at-large. That game's one of my most fascinating games of the entire season. I think that's probably going to be one of the better games of the season. And it could come down to the very last possession, one of those who has the ball last type games. So I think Oregon loses to Ohio State. Ohio State wins the Big Ten. Oregon still gets in, though, as an at-large. Here's where, for me, I start to struggle. Miami. And I know Madcraft in the stream will appreciate me telling you this. But I do have Miami in the playoff. And I told you a minute ago I made some changes to my Clemson, Florida State, Miami schedule predictions. Florida State teaser, not in the playoff. That's right, not in the playoff. Miami is who I insert in the playoff instead of Florida State. Miami's schedule. Florida A&M, Ball State, USF, Virginia Tech, Cal. As of right now, I think Miami's 6-0. At Louisville will be tricky. October 19th, Louisville's a very good team. So that'll be a tricky game for Miami, especially on the road. I think Louisville will be a little bit of a dark horse this season. And then they come back home and host Florida State at Hard Rock. That's the only game that I could see them losing. But the reality of it is, if they only lose one game to Florida State, they're still going to get in my opinion. They have Duke, Georgia Tech, Wake, and Syracuse on the schedule. I think Miami gets in. I really do. I think the Hurricanes get back to national relevancy for the first time in a long time and punch a ticket to the 2024 expanded playoff. This is where it got really, really difficult for me. Penn State. Oh, boy. A lot of projections out there have Penn State getting in. Penn State in the preseason AP poll is number 8 in the country, in the Big Ten. The question now becomes, how many Big Ten teams get in? Do you think 3 Big Ten teams get in? I think there's a good shot. I think there's a very good shot. And I think it could come down to a 3rd Big Ten team getting in versus a 5th or 4th SEC team getting in. I think it very well could. So Penn State's interesting. I look at their schedule. West Virginia, Bowling Green, Kent State, Illinois, UCLA. Probably 5-0 there, right? They do go the next week, October 12th, to Memorial Coliseum in LA and play the USC Trojans. How good do we expect USC to be? I don't expect them to be that good this year. Penn State, that's a winnable game on the road. At Wisconsin, Ohio State at home, I think that's a loss. There's no doubt about that in my mind. Washington, Purdue, Minnesota, Maryland. As long as they stay healthy, the expansion of the college football playoff could be the best thing that ever happened to James Franklin. It really could. It really could. A guy who has not, in my mind, has not proved himself with national relevancy consistently. I think you could see it. I think you could see it, and I think James Franklin could be thanking his lucky stars that the playoff has expanded. Penn State was the one where I said, Penn State or Missouri. Again, I said it a minute ago, does the Big Ten get 3 in, or does Missouri represent the SEC again? When I look at Missouri's schedule, other than Alabama and potentially Oklahoma, I don't see a loss. If they lose to Bama and Oklahoma in back-to-back weeks, I think that sets up perfectly for Penn State to get in. However, if they lose to Bama and then go back home and beat Oklahoma, boy, they're going to have a legit shot to get into the playoff, right? A legit shot. One more SEC team for me. I have Ole Miss getting in. Jackson Dart is too good of a quarterback in my mind not to make the college football playoff. Lane Kiffin, and maybe it's just me holding out, hoping that Lane Kiffin breaks through, hoping that this is the year Lane Kiffin gets into the playoff. But guess what? There's 12 spots at the table this year. And Lane Kiffin, no doubt in my mind, is one of the 12 best coaches in college football and will have one of the 12 best teams in college football, barring a serious injury, right? So I think Ole Miss gets in. And here's the last one. The one that I really struggled with the most. I hate putting this team in, but Notre Dame.
Yeah, I do.
Notre Dame, I don't expect to be dominant or even a very good team.
Just hold on to it. Give me just a minute.
But I think they'll beat A&M to open the season. They host Florida State. And then the only other game they have is at USC. And I could see them winning that game. And this is the team where I think I could be wrong. I think Notre Dame represents a coin flip here. I think Notre Dame is 50-50 in my opinion right now. Obviously, things will change as the season goes on. Notre Dame's 50-50 for me to get in. 1 minute I think they can. 1 minute I think, I don't know. They're the tricky one for me. So that completes my 12 teams. Now we have to get to the rankings, and that's why I broke it up into several segments during the show. Madcraft says, smiley face, smiley, 3 smiley faces, I could kiss you. Madcraft's so happy I put Miami in. Die hard Miami Hurricane and Madcraft. Texter texts the show, 903, says, boy, I hope you're right about Florida State. I think DJU is going to get crushed all year with this concrete shoes. Clemson will destroy Florida State this year. Well, Texter, I want to tell you this. I originally had Clemson losing to Florida State. I've changed my mind. I've changed my mind on Clemson and Florida State. The more I think about it, the more I chew on it, the more I sleep on it. I tell you, I think Florida State loses that game. I really do. Texter from the 201 says, Tolo Mike here. 1 Clemson, 2 Oregon. Kansas State 3. Wow. Texas 4. Liberty 5. Georgia 6. Ohio State 7. Missouri 8. Bama 9. Washington 10. FSU 11. Penn State 12. How about Tolo Mike getting his predictions in? Appreciate you texting the show. And speaking of Tolo Mike, I believe it's the same one. Yesterday, I want to give a shout out. I do believe I failed to do it yesterday in the last hour when we were at Local Q. It was good to see 2 of our Tolos at Local Q yesterday. Both named Mike. Mike and Mike were both at Local Q yesterday. It was good to see those guys. And I would assume that the Tolo Mike that just texted in is one of those mics that were there. Again, not Mike and Mike, the old ESPN show. Just to clarify. So those are my 12. Later on in the show, we'll get to the rankings. But the reality of it is that 8 through 12 for me is really, really tough. Ben doing a good job producing today for me in the Ingles Market Studios. Ben, do we have a caller?
Yeah, got you on Dewey.
He's still there?
Yeah, I got you, Dewey.
Let's go to the phones now. 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-326-3663. Who do we have?
Yes, this is Dewey.
Dewey, what's up, man?
You messed up. You left South Carolina out. They're going to be in there. They're going to be 12-0. It's going to be Carolina Clemson in the national championship game.
Dewey, thank you for correcting my mistake. I did not leave South Carolina out by mistake. I intentionally did that. Dewey, thanks for the call, as always. 844-FAN-PHONE. It's the renewal by Anderson of the Carolinas fan phone. 844-326-3663. Listen, Shane Beamer did say at SEC Media Days that the college football playoff is their expectation. I'm going to ask Shane Beamer about that very question tomorrow. Shane Beamer, if you did not know, will be joining us right here on Wire to Wire, 3 p.m., starting the show with a bang tomorrow as we talk to Shane Beamer. He will be live on the stream. You'll also be able to see him, not only hear him, but see him for the Tolos who watch via stream. 46 viewers right now in the stream, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. So glad to have you along. Tolo Mike and 903 have chimed in on the text line. What we're doing is we're talking about the 12-team playoff, giving you my predictions on who's in, who's out. Before we run, I will give you 7 through 12 as a teaser. I will go. This is tough. And Mike, you and I, Tolo Mike, who texted in, you and I disagree on about 4 different teams, it looks like. I'll go Notre Dame getting in at 12, Penn State 11, Miami 10, Ole Miss 9, Bama 8, and Boise State 7. Again, this is so incredibly difficult to predict where these teams will finish if they even do get in. But those are my 7 through 12. I'll give you 1 through 6 and continue to get your thoughts on all of that coming up. Texter does chime in 809 and say, what's Shane supposed to say? Top 12 ranking, not our goal? No, absolutely not, Texter. Absolutely not. I don't think he's supposed to say that. I'm just saying when you say that, it sets you up for questions, right? Everybody knows that every team's goal to start the season is to make the playoff and win the national championship. That's everybody's goal. I don't know that I would have said that if I'm Shane Beamer, but I like the confidence. I like it. All right, when we come back, guess who is showing a little bit of life, signs of life, if you will. I'll give you an update on the 3-win-in-a-row Bravos next. It is Wire to Wire, the newest show. I guess I can still call it the newest show, even though today is show 101. How bad of a radio host am I that I forgot to mention yesterday? As we were live at Local Q, I say we, I mean I failed to mention that yesterday was show 100. That's terrible. Not one time did I mention that. But I did mention today 101. Better late than never, right? I'm Cole Bryson. Good to be with you on this Thursday afternoon. Getting so close to the weekend. I gave you my 7 through 12 college football predictions. If you missed that segment, you can go back and listen anytime on the free Odyssey app with the rewind feature. You can also say, hey, Alexa, play the Fan Upstate. So good to be with you. And guess what? The Braves have won not one, not two, but 3 in a row. Can you believe it? Is that not something that the Braves fans should feel like we should celebrate in 2024? I mean, it's the little victories, right? It's the little things. As bad as the Braves have been, 64-56 now on the season. They took 3 of 4 from the Giants. They have one more today against San Francisco at 3:45, just 15 minutes from now. And we're going to get back into your text on the college football playoffs because we have a lot of text to get to on the text line. 71307. But Max Fried on the mound tonight for the Bravos. 7-6 on the season. He right now has an ERA of 3.56. Going up against Logan Webb of San Francisco. And did you see what Michael Harris did last night? Did you see that? Michael Harris III comes back from injury. And his first at bat, back from injury with the bases loaded, Michael Harris goes yard for a grand slam last night in the very first inning. The Braves went up 5-0 in the first inning. The very first inning. How about that? How about that? So that's the question I ask you, Braves fans. 71307 is the way you can text the show. Start your text with the word fan. Also, we're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. I want to believe it so badly. But I just don't know that this 3-game stretch for the Atlanta Braves, even though they've won 3 in a row, even though they're showing some signs of life, I just don't know that that this equates to anything. Because sometimes teams win and they go on streaks and they go win 3 in a row or 4 in a row, and they fall right back to reality. So I'm not really sure if we can celebrate this. And I know Braves fans, look, you're saying, well, we won 3 in a row. We should be able to celebrate it. It's fantastic. You know, there's been a terrible season. Celebrate anything, right? But what are they going to do now? Because just a few weeks ago, they showed signs of life. Just a few weeks ago, the Phillies showed that they were human. Dropped a few in a row, right? And what did the Braves do? Did they grab the bull by the horns? No, they didn't. They kept sliding. So again, I want to be optimistic. I want to think that maybe, just maybe, the Braves can put together a run. Right now, they're 6 games back in the East. That's the problem. They're 6 games back. Obviously, they still have a shot to make the playoffs. But I don't think they win the division. Philadelphia would have to go on a ginormous skid. Philadelphia would have to do what the New York Mets did, what was it, last year? Just a few years ago. The Braves have the Angels this weekend. So the Angels, the good thing about that is the Angels are 52-69. Not a good team. You have Spencer Schwellenbach going on Friday for the Braves. So remember, Max Fried tonight trying to sweep, 4-game sweep with the Giants. Schwellenbach on Friday. On Saturday, the Braves should be getting back around to Chris Sale, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, Chris Sale on Saturday. And then on Sunday, the Braves, in the third and final game with the Angels, will have Charlie Morton. The reason I say that is, looking at Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I believe Atlanta will be favored because of the pitching matchups. Now, I'm not a big fan of Charlie Morton. I don't really have a ton of faith in Charlie Morton with his age. I think the Braves way overpaid for him. But here's the reality of it. If you look at if you look at Thursday, which includes today, if you look at Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday, Charlie Morton, let's just for kicks and giggles chalk that up as a loss. If the Braves can win 3 of their next 4, including today, they'll have won 3 straight already. Wednesday, Tuesday, and Monday, 2 of those coming in extra innings. Last night's wasn't close. Michael Harris busted it open from the very beginning. But my point is, if you can win 6 out of 7, that's a really good spot. That's a really good spot. Again, I think Philadelphia would have to have an astronomical type collapse in order for you to win the division with not much baseball to play. But you never know. You never know. Texter from the text line, 71307-561 says, second place is a better spot for the playoffs because you don't have that long gap between the end of the season and first playoff game, says JT and Greer. No, JT, I agree with you. I've said that multiple times that I hate the gap. I hate it. I wish MLB would fix it. I wish baseball would find a solution. And I know it's tough because you really can't somebody's got to have days off. I get that. You can't just automatically somehow magically get rid of those days. The winners of the divisions have to have a break somewhere. But to your point, JT, as a Braves fan, I agree with you. I hate it. It always seems like those days off don't benefit you the way people think, right? A lot of sports people say, oh, have a couple days off, or in football, have a bye week, get back healthy, have time to rest. I just don't look at it that way in baseball. I think that it hurts you more than it helps you. You're out of your groove. And now, granted, if you're not playing well, I don't know that it has that big of an impact. But we have seen the Braves in the past in the season playing really well, like last year. One of the best offenses in baseball, the best offense in baseball for the majority of the season. And then that gap that you're talking about, JT, almost acted as an ice bath, right? The Braves went and got in the ice bath for, 4 days? And did just that. They cooled off. They cooled off big time, and we all know the rest of the story. So maybe you're right. But here's my concern, JT and Greer, and for the rest of the Braves fans out there. Let's say you're right. Let's say the Braves make the playoffs. They get the wild card. They go in. They don't have the cap. They get into the postseason. Okay? If the Atlanta Braves find themselves in the 2024 postseason, do we have faith and confidence that this team with the injuries is good enough to make a run? That's what concerns me. That's where I am hesitant on the Atlanta Braves in 2024 because as of right now, on the 15th of August, yes, the Braves have a good shot to make the postseason. But if you asked me how much faith I had in this team to make a postseason run, the answer would be, I tell you, not many. Not much, rather. Not much. Not much faith. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the core that's there gels and goes on a run. And I have to eat my words on Brian Snitker, right? Because last Monday, to be exact, I came on these airwaves and told you that Brian Snitker, it was time, if nothing else happened, if if they didn't play some more inspiring baseball, then it was time for Brian Snitker to go. 3-game win streaks aren't enough for me to change my mind, okay? They've won 3 in a row. I haven't changed my mind on Snit. Now, I'll tell you where I do change my mind. Let the Braves go on a postseason run. If they get out of the wild card with this team, with these injuries, then guess what? You're going to have to force me to change my mind, right? Because the reality of it is, we know that injuries have played a big part this season. My point on Monday of last week was I don't think that with the injuries, putting the injuries aside, I don't think Brian Snitker's gotten the most of this group. But what's reality is if he goes on a postseason run, I have to eat my words on a silver platter, right? If he gets out of the wild card and all of a sudden wins a game or two in the divisional round, that's where things become interesting. But the bottom line is you got to have the guys to go do it. And the Phillies, you say, well, the Phillies have done it in the past few years. They've been able to go on runs. The Nationals a few years ago, remember when the Nationals came out of nowhere and went and won the whole freaking thing? I still don't think the Braves teams, or I still don't think this year's Braves team is quite as good as the Nationals were the last few years when they came out as a wild card and went on a run. Now, I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong on my expectations in the postseason if the Braves do get in, because I don't think they have enough horses in the stable to go make a run, but I hope I'm wrong. JT and Greer says, rest versus rust. Well, that's right. That's right. But, JT, leave it to the Braves to prove that wrong, right? This year, watch what will happen. Just our luck, just Braves fans' luck. The Phillies will make the playoffs as the leader and the winner of the division, get the break, come back, play even better. The Braves, with no rest, will plummet. And then it will prove all of our theories wrong, right? All right, coming up next, we'll get you caught up on all of the headlines in the sports world. We call them the Daily Wires. I'm Cole Bryson, and this is the Fan Upstate. Getting you updated on what's going on in the sports world. We call them the Daily Wires right here on the Fan Upstate. Texter chimes in on the Braves conversation, says, I agree, Cole. Another texter from the 809 says, harsh on Snitker since everybody had career years last year and the Phillies are up 6 games with half of the Braves on the DL. Here's what's interesting. I understand the injuries and everybody on the DL. But I go back to the point with Bruce Bochy and the Rangers last year. It all comes down to doing more with less. Again, not to get on the Braves tangent again, but it is time to get to our Daily Wires. Glad to be with you on this Thursday edition. I'm Cole Bryson. NFL preseason week 2 begins tonight as the Eagles and Patriots face off at 7 p.m. The Patriots are favored by 3 points. Anyone who puts money on preseason NFL games, kudos to you. I mean, that's like predicting, when a leaf will fall off of a tree in your backyard. I mean, who knows the exact time or day? Good luck to you. Good luck to you. The Atlanta Braves are winners of 3 straight as they defeated the Giants last night 13-2, as I told you just a few minutes ago. First pitch today, 3:45, should be any time now getting started. The FedEx St. Jude Championship begins today with round 1 already in progress in Memphis, Tennessee. We will keep an eye on that throughout the show today and tomorrow as well. Round 1 there up in Memphis. Old Memphis, a city that I have been to and never lost anything there. Have no desire to go back. What else? 4 games today in the Little League World Series. 1 p.m., 3 p.m., 5 and 7, all on ESPN. Question for you. Do you care about the Little League World Series? Are you interested in it? Do you find interest? Do you find yourself vested in the Little League World Series? I'll watch it. And then as it gets closer and closer to the championship, I become more and more interested. But I can't sit down today and watch a game inning by inning. I know it's a fantastic event, but you just can't get me to invest, 1 o'clock today until 9 o'clock tonight. It'd be hard to convince me to invest 8 hours in the Little League World Series. I'll watch it. I'll follow along, but I'm not going to sit down and watch the entirety of that World Series. JD on the YouTube stream says Little League World Series is one of the best events. Love it. Baseball at its purest form. What do you mean, JD? They don't have NIL and transfer portal in the Little League World Series? Let's see. JD says it's probably my number 5 behind March Madness, Super Bowl, Masters, College World Series, and college football playoffs. Well, that would be number 6 because you just named 5, right? So you'd say Little League World Series would be 6? I don't know. For me. I'll watch it, but I'm not going to get excited about it. I'll follow along. I'll have updates for you. Are you interested in it? 71307. Start your text with the word fan. In case you missed it yesterday, the New England Patriots traded Pro Bowl linebacker Matthew Judon to the Atlanta Falcons. What did the Falcons give in return? A 3rd rounder. Woof. Wow. The Patriots just got gypped, man. They got gypped. But by the way, I think it's a huge pickup for Atlanta, right? They needed that. They need a guy like Judon defensively, and he's still a really good player. It's a big pickup for the Falcons, who desperately need somebody like that. That veteran presence on defense will be big, but again, Patriots, they're making some head-scratching decisions, and I'm just not sure if the Patriots are anywhere close to returning to glory anytime soon. You basically let them go for free. Let's call it like it is there. You basically let them walk. And then also yesterday, just horrible, horrible news out of the NFL. Vikings rookie quarterback J.J. McCarthy out for the 2024 season after meniscus surgery. And you know what, man? I was just starting to buy into the J.J. McCarthy hype. Like I was just starting to feel like J.J. McCarthy in Minnesota might be what they were looking for. And I think that he's still going to be the guy. And I know the Vikings and their head coach, they've spoken out about the injury and say, look, thankfully we have a guy like Sam Darnold. However, J.J. McCarthy's still our quarterback. He's still the quarterback of the future. But the reality of it is injuries change things, man. Injuries change things. And that'll make it interesting. That will make it very interesting. 2 more Daily Wires for you. Furman Fan Fest this Saturday. Gates open at 11 a.m. They did move it up 1 hour. So if you're looking for something to do this Saturday, go check out Furman. They'll have a scrimmage around noon, an autograph session for the kids. You can get autographs from the coaches and team. Free event. That's the best part about it. The free event. You hear promos running on this very station about the Furman Fan Fest. But go check it out. Again, gates open at 11 a.m. on Saturday, and then the last Daily Wire tomorrow, 3 p.m. Fantastic guest right here on the Fan Upstate, the head football coach of the South Carolina Gamecocks, Shane Beamer, will join the program. We'll start the show with a bang with Coach Beamer. So I ask you, Tolos, that are Gamecock fans in the audience, if you have a question for Shane Beamer, number one, it better be good, okay? You can't just come in, you can't send in an average question and expect me to ask Coach Beamer your question. If you want to ask Coach Beamer a question tomorrow, if you want me to ask the question for you, send in the question on the text line, but it better be a good one. I mean, you better come in with the heat. Just so you know, when I do these interviews, I don't prep questions. Everybody's different. Every broadcaster is different. Every radio show host is different. Some prep questions, some do not. It's personal preference. There's no better way to do it or better way to go about it, but I don't prep questions. So I'll be asking Shane Beamer the questions just off the cuff. But if you want to get in on a question with Coach Beamer, send it in, but it's got to be worthy of being asked. It's got to be worthy of being asked. All right, Kelly Ford of Kelly Ford Ratings joins the show next right here on the Fan Upstate. is hour number 2 of the program. So glad to be with you on this Thursday edition of Wire to Wire. I'm Cole Bryson. We have Kelly Ford of K Ford Ratings joining us right here. Good friend of the program. Kelly, I want to start with this. We have heard, we've heard through different media members and people who cover college football this season that this is the most anticipated college football season in a long, long time, maybe ever, because of the expanded playoffs. As you've done your ratings and built up to the college football season, do you feel that as well?
Yeah, I think it's hard not to get excited about a lot of different things that are happening. It depends on your viewpoint, though, Cole, of the sport. Do you think that a lot of the changes that are happening are for the betterment of the sport? Are they for the betterment of your team? Are they for the betterment of the student athletes, the players? I mean, all of that comes into play, but certainly this is America. And in the United States, we love postseason competition, and this is the largest postseason competition that we have ever seen at the highest level of college football in this country. So certainly coming along with that, many, many people are going to be very excited about how this plays out with the 12-team playoff in 2024.
That's a good way to look at it. It's fascinating. I love looking at your website, which our viewers, our Tolos, can find at kfordratings.com. As you get these ratings on the website and out to the public, you start looking through them, you start digesting them. In the years that you've done this, Kelly, have you ever found yourself kind of second guessing some of the ratings that have come out and just having a different gut feeling about maybe where a team is ranked or something like that?
Yeah, I've gotten a lot better, I'll say, Cole, about trying to, what I say is separate K Ford Ratings, the model, from Kelly Ford, the person, and have my own opinion and not just blindly trust the model, right? Because there's no model that's perfect. That includes mine. It's all got blind spots, and there's additional context that needs to be considered because no model can account for everything. So, yeah, I do think that there have been instances where certain teams just from a gut feel standpoint, it doesn't feel like they're properly rated within or ranked within the ratings. And so I think for me this year, the team that stands out kind of at the top of the board, if we're looking at the top 10 of my preseason version 2, the one that probably stands out to me as maybe they're out of place would be Oklahoma. I've got them right now number 8 in the model. And I think Oklahoma is going to be a really good team. I certainly think they're probably a top 15 most talented team in the country. But are they top 10? Should they be ahead of an LSU or a Tennessee or a Clemson or Missouri? I mean, maybe, maybe not. But yes, I've gotten better about trying to have my own opinion and separate that from what the model is spitting out.
Kelly Ford joining us on Wire to Wire right here on the Fan Upstate. Kelly, I fail to do this sometimes, but I do know that we have new listeners, new Tolos that join us every single day on Wire to Wire. And for those that have just listened for the very first time in the last few days or last few weeks, can you give a quick recap of how your ratings are put together?
Yeah, for sure. So anyone who's familiar with, Bill Connolly's SP Plus or Brian Fremeau's FEI, ESPN has a predictive model, FPI. It's very similar to those types of models. And what we're trying to do is quantify the predictable and predictive aspects and repeatable elements of college football, because there's a very small sample size in college football. There's only 12 regular season games for most teams. And within that, you only have a set number of plays. So we're dealing with a lot of minimal information, trying to make season-long projections. And so you need to filter out the noise and what's not important and try to drill down on what really is informative with regard to trying to project how college football games are going to be played. So in the preseason, we're looking at 3 main things. It's your returning production, it's your recent K Ford ratings, how well has your team performed in recent years, and then your recent recruiting. And I spent some time this summer, Cole, trying to really drill deep into how should those be weighted in 2024? Because how a roster is constructed in 2024 is much different than it was 4 or 5 years ago. So spend a lot of time on that. And then once we get into the season, you can phase out that preseason component and you can replace it with the in-season data, which again, you're filtering through the noise, if you will, the things that don't matter and trying to identify what does matter and how much does it matter. And that's what we're doing simultaneously for all 134 teams. And by using the power ratings then as the engine, I can generate all sorts of college football content, from objective resume rankings to team projections for any given week or a season, a conference race. What's the percent chance that your team goes bowling? What's the percent chance your team wins 10 games? We can make CFB projections, which of course a lot of people care about. And we can try to quantify watchability scores as well. So there's tons of different things we can do using the power ratings as the engine.
Kelly, in the very first segment of the show, I gave my college football playoff predictions, 1 through 12. I gave the teams that I thought would get in. There's a few that I've struggled with, okay? I want to start with Missouri. I know they're 15 in your preseason rankings, in your top 30. Missouri, to me, is so fascinating, Kelly, in 2024, not necessarily because of what they have and the team that they have. They're a good team, very good coach. But it's more about, to me, who they play. And I think other than that Alabama game on October 26th at Bryant-Denny, their schedule sets up in a way for them to be a dark horse or a sleeper to enter the playoff.
Yeah, certainly, Cole. And you said it's about who they play. I'll phrase it a different way. It's about who they don't play, if we're being honest. So Missouri, yes, they're an interesting team, and I've talked about this at various points throughout the summer. This is the year for Missouri. I mean, it's make or break this year because from a power rating standpoint, I have them number 15, as we talked about. That's, they haven't been higher than number 14 in my power ratings in the CFP era. This will be 3 years they've been inside the top 20 in the last 10 or 11 years. So Missouri, while they're a good program and has had lots of success at various levels in the past, this is a team that could project to be among the best that they've had, at least in recent memory. So you've got a really good team, especially by the Missouri standard. And then also you look at the schedule. It's the number 32 most difficult schedule in the country by my numbers. So people will say, well, that's pretty good. And that's average for Power 4 teams. And it is. But when you're looking at the SEC, it's the only SEC team outside the top 30 in schedule difficulty. If you peel away the non-conference and look just at the conference games, it's the second easiest SEC conference slate for that conference this year. Only Texas has an easier 8-game conference slate than Missouri by my numbers. This team does not play Georgia. They do not play LSU. They do not play Texas. They do not play Ole Miss. They do not play Tennessee. They do not play Florida. I mean, Missouri misses a lot of the contenders. So there's only 2 games this year that I currently make Missouri a projected underdog. That would be at A&M and at Alabama. If Missouri can get to 10-2 this year, I certainly think they're going to be in a position to be in that CFP at-large conversation, if not a spot in Atlanta.
That's fascinating, and I love your work, Kelly. I think it does a very good job of giving us very solid projections going into the season. Another team that is interesting, I would say maybe in a similar position, maybe in a similar category as Missouri, and in your projected ACC standings, they are 4th, and it would be the Miami Hurricanes. 5.4 average % chance to win conference games. So you have them win them about 5.5 conference games in the ACC. However, I had them in my 12. I had them in my final 12 when the playoffs are said and done. Do you think Miami, based on your numbers, could indeed be a playoff team?
Yeah, I mean, certainly from a talent standpoint, I have Miami number 17 in my power ratings. And looking at, their schedule that they're playing, it's number 47 out of 68 Power 4 teams in college football this year. So it's among the easier schedules among Power 4. I think they need to get to 10 wins to be in that at-large conversation. But certainly there is the path to the AQ if they win the ACC. If we look at Miami's schedule, there's not a single game in which they're going to be, at least right now, a decided underdog. There are 3 games that I have the Hurricanes with less than a 50% win expectancy, but each of those games, they're in the 40%. And so it's going to be a projected 1-score game, and we know those can go either way. Week 1 at Florida right out of the gate, week 8 on the road at Louisville, but Miami is off the week before, so that's going to help them prepare for that road trip. And then week 9, they do welcome Florida State to town, and of course that's a huge rivalry game in the state of Florida in the ACC, and might be a determining factor as to which team makes it to Charlotte this year and play that ACC championship. So, yeah, from a talent standpoint, this could be the best Miami team that we've seen, since maybe 2016 is what my numbers are suggesting right now. Could be the best offense that Miami has seen since, really the CFP era. Right now I'm projecting number 21. They have not been higher than number 27 on offense during the CFP era. And on defense, certainly expect them to take a step forward from a year ago as well. I'm projecting a top 40 unit there. So the schedule's nice. There's not a single game where you're looking at it saying, man, they're a big underdog. So if Miami can put it together, and that's a big if, because Mario Cristobal is a great recruiter, and he's done a great job aggregating the talent, but there are some questions about how he manages in-game decisions and how that all works on the football field. So if they can piece that together this year, then certainly Miami could be a dark horse to make the playoff. I've got them right now with somewhere in the 20-ish% chance to be 20-25% chance to be in the at-large conversation at the end of the year.
Kelly, Kelly Ford of K Ford Ratings joining us right here on the Fan Upstate. Kelly, a big talking point. It was a huge talking point in 2023, especially to start college football. It did get a little more quiet after Dan Lanning in Oregon had something to say, but Colorado, a big talking point, obviously, with Deion Sanders. You have them in the Big 12 at an average project of 3.8. Based on your numbers with Colorado, because everyone wants to talk about Deion, and the guy has done a really good job of bringing transfers in. The recruiting classes aren't there, but the transfer portal classes are. Based on the numbers themselves, how do you view Colorado in 2024?
Colorado is among the more interesting teams for a couple reasons, Cole. One, obviously with Deion, the amount of transfers, all of that. But two, I recently put out on social media an analysis using my version 2 preseason power ratings. How many games are we projecting each team to be playing in a one-score game this year? How many in the regular season are projecting to be one-score games? Colorado led the way. 10 of their 12 regular season games right now, I have projected as a one-score game. So that means Colorado's either favored or an underdog by one possession. I mean, you talk about one-score game luck and kind of how that can define a season. It's possible, it's feasible that Colorado could win, as many as 9 or 10 games this year. It's also feasible if they lose all those one-score games that you're only winning, 3 or 4 games. And so Colorado right now, for me, I'm projecting 6-6. I would view a bowl for Colorado as a really good sign of progress and something that should be celebrated, for a Colorado program that, if you take away the COVID year of 2020, really hasn't had much to get excited about since that awesome year they had in 2016, where they finished number 15 in my power rating. Number 43 is where I have them right now. To put that in context, though, 2 years ago, the year before Deion got there, I had this team number 125 out of 131 at the time FBS teams. So this program has made great strides and great improvement over the course of the last 2 years. I hope that a 6-6 season, if it comes to fruition, is celebrated. My fear is that it will be viewed as a disappointment because of the amount of hype that's been built up around this Colorado program. And admittedly, Colorado's done some of this, or maybe most of it, to themselves. So they've definitely participated in this hype. But I think this program's trending in the right direction. I think Deion's done a good job of getting it going that way. But certainly, I think unless they have just tremendous success in one-score games, they are still a year or two away from being a serious contender in the Big 12.
Kelly, I'll tell you what, man, that is a fascinating graphic that you have on your Twitter, or X, if you will, about projected one-possession regular season games. To our listeners, to our Tolos, if you haven't done so already, go to Twitter, go to X, whatever you call it, give him a follow at K Ford Ratings, and you'll see exactly what he's talking about. What goes into that in terms of how to predict and project how many one-possession games a team will have in one season?
Yeah, so it's actually quite simple, Cole, when we use the power ratings, right? Because every single FBS team has their power rating. I can then assign a projected spread to every single game that we're playing. And so then if I just look at the projected spread, you can count how many of these are projected to be one-score games and how many are not, right? And so, again, like I talked about at the very top, using the power ratings as the engine, we can create so much content regarding college football, a team, a conference, a national championship race, whatever it is. The power ratings allow us to do so much, and they're not 100% accurate. They're not the end-all, be-all, but they can give us a general, realistic outlook for a team and a starting point for a conversation to be had about really anything college football related, and that's why I love them so much. So, yeah, Colorado, 10 of their 12, which is just insane. There's about 6 teams. Coastal Carolina might be a team of interest down there in the upstate. I've got them with 9 of their 12 games projected to be one-score games. So you can see it. Liberty, Vanderbilt, and New Mexico. Talk about some teams that have different goals for this year. All of them bring up the rear with only one projected one-score game. And that's not to say it's a good or a bad thing. Liberty's going to be a big favorite in most of the games they play. Vanderbilt, they're going to be a big underdog in most of the games they play. So it's interesting to see which teams can end up on the same tier, right? Like Oregon, Ohio State, Georgia, Penn State, they're on the same tier as Nevada and ULM and Navy. So it's just interesting to see how teams kind of shake out and what that means in terms of them either being a big favorite typically or a big underdog, or in Colorado's case, a lot of toss-up games.
Give him a follow on Twitter at K Ford Ratings on that same one-possession regular season games graphic, Kelly. one of our Tolos, JD, brings up South Carolina, and you have them at 5 projected one-possession regular season games. Do you look at that as a piece of optimism for a program like South Carolina, who it's a very important year for Shane Beamer, right? Year 4, they're projected to win 4 or 5 games by most of the people in the media. Do you look at that as a positive from the standpoint of, hey, they're going to be in 5, possibly more really close one-possession games? This may give them a chance to capitalize on some of those and win a few of those games.
Yes, certainly. And you have to then also look outside of just those games in which they're projecting as a one-score game and say, what about the other games? Because for South Carolina, I mean, Old Dominion, Akron, Wofford, Vanderbilt, there are 4 more games right there where you're going to be a favorite by more than 1 score. So there's really just 1 game on the schedule right now, or 2 games on the schedule right now, maybe 3, where you're looking at projected underdog of more than 1 score. That would be Alabama, Oklahoma, Clemson. Those games fall into that mix. So there is a lot of reason to be optimistic for South Carolina, but the reality is they've got to go out and then win these games in which they're projected to be close, because if they don't, if they have a poor record in one-score games, I don't think the record at the end of the year is going to be what a lot of people want to see after what Shane Beamer has been building on here in 2022, 2023. I have South Carolina as a slightly better team this year than either of the previous 2 years. Number 42 in the power ratings 2 years ago, number 44 a year ago. I'm projecting number 38 this year, which would be the best South Carolina team in my model since 2018. I think the defense should be pretty good, top 40. My questions are on the offensive side of the ball. I've got 6-6 as the most likely record with a 62% chance to go bowling. So again, South Carolina is a good team, but they have a top 10 most difficult schedule in the entire country. A lot of these games, though, could be one-score games, and if they're able to win some of those and pull them out, folks should be excited about the potential to have a really good record this year.
Kelly, fantastic stuff. I'm fascinated with the work that you do at kfordratings.com. Really appreciate you taking time to hop on and look forward to chatting again soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Cole. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. That's Kelly Ford of K Ford Ratings. Again, if you don't do so already, go give him a follow on Twitter. You're doing yourself a disservice if you don't. It's fantastic. At K Ford Ratings on Twitter, on X. It blows your mind. And listen, maybe it's just me because I'm not a math guy, right? I'm not, never have claimed to be a mathematician. And all of these numbers, the projections, the formulas that Kelly Ford uses in his preseason rankings, they are fantastic. His website, kfordratings.com. That's kfordratings.com. Really appreciate him for hopping on the program today. Want to let you know, coming up next, we're going to jump right back in. We had a huge response in the first segment. I will now give you my college football playoff predictions 1 through 6. I gave you 7 through 12 in hour number 1. If you weren't with us, I'll do a quick recap and get your thoughts as well. All coming up right here on the Fan Upstate. Who's in and who is out? College football playoff predictions. I opened the show giving you who I thought would be in. I even gave you my 7 through 12 college football playoff predictions. I welcome your thoughts. Who you think will make it? Who you think will be on the outside looking in? Also, where will they be? We had a big response in the very first segment from our Tolos. That stands for Turn It On, Leave It On. By the way, in the past 2 weeks, I've been out in public about 4 times total, including yesterday at Local Q, where somebody's walked up to me and said, Tolo. And you know what? That made me just think, that's awesome. That made me happy. That made me happy to hear you guys, see you out in public. Appreciate you listening to the program. Let me know where you think these teams will be in terms of 1 through 12 rankings. I want to do a quick recap if you just tuned into the program. In order to decide who gets into the playoff, you have to decide who wins the championships, right, of the conferences. So a quick recap. I had Georgia coming out of the SEC, Clemson coming out of the ACC, Ohio State coming out of the Big Ten, and Utah coming out of the Big 12. Highest ranked G5 champion, I have Boise State. That G5 champion, I think, is going to be fascinating. Boise State, as I said in the very first segment of the show, should be very good this year if they stay healthy. However, I think there's some teams that could challenge Boise State for that G5 champion spot in terms of who's highest ranked. And that's going to be fascinating, especially to see if that G5 champion, whether it be Boise State or, Troy, whoever it may be, to see if they can make a run in the playoff. That's what I look forward to the most. Now, Boise State has Spencer Danielson, who was the interim head coach, now the head coach. They went to a Mountain West title last year. Danielson returns 18 starters to the field this year. A very good tailback in Ashton Jeanty, the league's top rusher, one of college football's best running backs, Malachi Nelson at quarterback. He is a transfer from USC. The only question mark is the defense. The run defense wasn't good last year. The secondary was not the best either. So the defense will be the question mark for Boise State to see whether they can get in or whether they can get into the college football playoff. They have a big test against Oregon early in the season. That will be a huge game for them. So I told you my champions of the conferences: Georgia, Clemson, Ohio State, Utah, Boise State. That leaves 7 at-large teams. And I mentioned this to Kelly Ford of K Ford Ratings, who just came on the program, and appreciate him joining me because Kelly Ford, as I said, he's really fantastic and does fantastic work. I asked him about Miami. I asked him about Missouri. I was very torn when it comes to the 7 at-large bids because I have Texas, Alabama, Oregon, Miami, Penn State, Ole Miss, and Notre Dame getting in. However, I'm really struggling with Notre Dame and Missouri. I told you earlier in the segment, in the show rather, that I have Notre Dame getting in. However, if you ask me 10 minutes later, I'll tell you, no, Missouri's going to get in and Notre Dame's not going to get in. Or you could have a situation where Penn State drops a game they're not supposed to. The Big Ten doesn't get that third school. And the SEC, maybe along with Notre Dame, gets a Missouri into the college football playoff. That's what's fascinating. How many SEC teams are going to make it? Right now, I have Georgia making it. I have Texas, Alabama, and Ole Miss. So as of right now, I have 4 SEC teams making the college football playoff of 12. But if you told me 5 made it, I would say Missouri's probably the team that gets in. I really think they have a very good shot with their schedule. And Kelly Ford put it well. It's more about who they don't play rather than it being about who they do play. Because as he said, they avoid some really big opponents. No Tennessee, right? No Georgia, no Texas. So Missouri's chances are going to be there for them to find a way to get in. So those are my teams. As I told you earlier, I have Notre Dame at 12, Penn State at 11, Miami at 10, Ole Miss at 9, Alabama at 8, Boise State at 7, and that leaves 1 through 6. I'm going to pause because I want to hear from you. Before I give you my 1 through 6, I want to hear from you on any disagreement you may have on my 7 through 12 or just in totality of the teams that I have in the college football playoff. Several ways for you to get in touch with the show. Text line is always open, 71307. Start your text with the word fan. That way I will see it on our text line. Phone lines open as well during this segment. Phone lines, 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-326-3663. One more time, 844-326-3663. That's the renewal by Anderson of the Carolinas Fan Phone. Who do you have getting in, and who do you have being left out of the college football playoff? All right, my 1 through 6. These are tough. These are tough to decide as well because we're splitting hairs here with very, very good teams. Oregon's, in my opinion, going to be in the top 6. I originally had them at 6. However, I changed Oregon. I moved Oregon rather to 5, and I dropped Utah to 6. So I have Utah getting in the playoff, having a good season. As I said, winning the Big 12, staying, as long as they stay healthy, they'll have a very good shot to finish somewhere in the top 6. I don't know that they finish top 4 because of who's in the top 4, but I have Oregon at 5. I have the Texas Longhorns at 4. And then, as I told you in segment number 1, I made 3 changes today. Gut feeling. Again, a lot of times people tell you, stick with your gut, don't change things later. Well, I did the exact opposite. I made 3 changes today. I made a change to Florida State's schedule and my predictions for them. I made a change to Clemson's schedule, and I made a change to South Carolina's schedule as well. I'll get to those changes a little bit later in the show, but maybe I made a mistake from changing from my gut to what I think now, but we'll see. I have Texas at 4, Clemson getting back into the Final Four, 1 loss this season against Georgia at 3, Ohio State at 2, and Georgia at 1. That rounds out my top 12. So initially, there's going to be a lot of reaction on Clemson, who I have finishing inside the top 4. It would not surprise me a bit to see them flipped with Texas or Oregon. I do believe they finish ahead of Utah, but it wouldn't surprise me to see Texas at 4 and Clemson at 5 or Clemson at 6. Or, Clemson at 4, not 6. I think they finish ahead of Utah. And I think Utah does get in. But I do think they will avoid putting Clemson at 4. I don't know if the committee, whether they want to admit it or not, I don't know if they want to have another Georgia-Clemson matchup, depending on how that game goes, right? Because if it doesn't go well early in the season, here in just a few weeks, they're probably not going to want to schedule that game again. Now, they say that these things don't dictate the seeding. They say that these games early in the season don't really determine whether or not there's a rematch, but I think they do. If this game was close, and let's say Clemson hangs with Georgia and has a chance in the fourth quarter, then I could very well see Clemson at 4, finishing 4, and then Georgia 1, seeing a rematch. Texter from the 344 chimes in and says, all I see is Boise State too high of a seed. No way they put a G5 that high, in my opinion. Well, Texter, I'll tell you this. I had that very thought earlier in the show as well. And that is a very, very valid point. However, let's take a look at their schedule. They have a huge game early in the season with Oregon. But let's say other than that, they run the table. Okay, that's an early game if I'm not mistaken. I'm pulling up the schedule now. Yeah, it's the second game of the season for Boise State. So Boise State, I agree with you that I don't know that they'll finish top 6. But here's why I say maybe they do finish top 7 or top 8. After the Oregon game, September 7th, they're going to probably cruise. And if they cruise, a lot of people at the end of the season will have forgotten that Oregon game. If that game goes sour for Boise State, which I don't think it'll be close, it's a 10 o'clock night game on Peacock. The reality of it is, by the time we get to November and December, by the time we get to the Mountain West Championship, and in my opinion, Boise State will be in that championship, by the time we get there, a lot of people might have forgotten about that Oregon game, right? So my point is, maybe people forget about it. They go on a run and win the next 10 games. They have Portland State, Washington State, Utah State, Hawaii, UNLV, San Diego State, Nevada, San Jose State, Wyoming, and Oregon State. If Boise State's as good as projected, they should run the table. They have a very good chance of being a one-loss team when it's all said and done. They really do. I don't think that Oregon game will go well for them. But my point is, Texter, I initially agree with you that they shouldn't finish high. But I'm just thinking that maybe, just maybe, the committee forgets about that Oregon game a little bit and says, look, Boise State's won 10 in a row. Now they won the Mountain West. Now they've won 11 in a row. And again, that's a stretch. That'd be a tall task, right, to win 11 in a row. They could do it, but it wouldn't be easy. My point is maybe they reel off, 8 of the last 9, and the committee says, man, that's a good team. They're worthy of being 7 or 8. So, you know what? In the end, you're probably right, Texter, in terms of teams like Alabama. Maybe they do put Alabama like at a 7 and a Boise State at 8, because the Alabama relevancy and the power that they have just by being Alabama, they're going to finish ahead of some teams, right? That's going to happen. So I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I do think based on their schedule, they could be in the top 10. They could be. Texter says, I just think they will seed a 10-2 SEC or Big Ten team over an 11-1 G5 team. Certainly could be right. Could be right. And I'll tell you this. To your point, I'm very intrigued and interested, very interested how the committee views, let's say, for example, if Boise State does go 11-1, how does the committee view an 11-1 G5 team who's a Mountain West champion, who's won 9 or 10 straight games? How do they view them over a 2 or 3 loss team? Because it's a fascinating subject, and now that there's a 12-team playoff, that Boise State's definitely getting in, but where they're seated, it will matter. Ben on the Facebook stream chimes in. Ben says, Notre Dame's schedule too easy. They will be in. Okay, Ben, I had their schedule put up just a few moments ago. Let me see if I still do. Yes, I do. I agree that their schedule's favorable. So here are the games for Notre Dame that concern me. Right off the bat, week 1, in just 10 days? I don't know how many days August 31st is now, but not many days from now, they'll go to College Station and play A&M. I don't think A&M is going to be very good this season, Ben, to your point, but you never know. At College Station, on the road, Notre Dame, maybe they underperform. I'm not saying they do, but I look for that one. Louisville, I think Louisville this season will be a little bit of a sneaky team. They play Louisville on September the 28th. The only other game that I could say concerns me, Florida State, November 9th. They do get that game at home. Maybe they drop it to DJU and then at USC to end the season. If USC's already checked out by season's end, then they're going to win that game, in my opinion. But there are, again, I don't think this is an elite Notre Dame team. There are some teams on this schedule that I think could trip them up. I think, listen, at the end of the day, this is college football. They're not played on paper. And I see some teams here that I think could trip the Irish up in 2024. But to your point, their schedules, it sets up in a way they might get in. And I have them right now getting in. As of right now, I have them getting in. JD on the YouTube stream says the best seed Notre Dame can get is 5 because they won't win a P4 conference championship. JD, I don't think they finish that high. I don't think a Notre Dame team, to your point, I don't think they finish anywhere near 5, to be quite frank. It wouldn't surprise me if they're more like 10 through 12. I don't know, man. I don't know. It'll be because, again, like you said, they won't have won Power 4 conference championship. How does the committee view them? No, I don't think they're sniffing 5. Not unless they just blow people's doors off and go undefeated, right? Which I don't think is going to happen. I don't view them as that by any means. But to recap, my college football playoff teams in 2024 before we hit a break are Georgia, Ohio State, Clemson, Texas, Oregon, Utah, Alabama, Boise State, Ole Miss, Miami, Penn State, and Notre Dame. Obviously, as the season goes on, I might look like an idiot because maybe one of these teams falls flat on their face. Maybe they don't. How cool would it be if I got all 12 right, though? How cool would it be? You can continue to get your thoughts in on the show, 71307. Start your text with the word fan. Phone lines open as well, 844-FAN-PHONE. We'll continue the conversation and get your thoughts. On the other side, this is the Fan Upstate. So yesterday, I was at Local Q, and if you listened to the program yesterday, you know that. By the way, big shout out to Leah and those at Local Q. If you, one more time, if you don't have any plans this weekend and you've never been, do what I did. Go by there for the first time, try their food. Their wings are incredible. Really good menu selection at Local Q over on 30 Orchard Park Drive in Greenville. So speaking of chicken wings, earlier in the week, I can't remember what day it was, I brought up a story on the show about a school district employee stealing $1.5 million worth of chicken wings. So why am I bringing this up again? Well, someone has stepped in. Someone with a lot of money has stepped in. Chiefs defensive tackle Chris Jones has offered to pay $1.5 million for the chicken wings that the woman stole from the South Suburban School. So this lady who stole a lot of money, she was 66 years old, stole a lot of chicken wings from this school district. She's getting love now from Jones. She, Vera, is serving 9 years in prison after pleading guilty Friday to stealing $1.5 million worth of food, which consisted of chicken wings. She was the food service director for Harvey School District 152. Cook County prosecutors accused her of stealing massive amounts of food meant for take-home meals for students learning remotely during the pandemic. On Tuesday, Kansas City Chiefs defensive tackle Chris Jones posted to X offering to pay for the wings that she stole to get her free in a bid to get Lydell out of prison. So I'm trying to decide where I stand on this. Is Chris Jones paying $1.5 million back to the school district so that they won't have to recoup that money? Or is Chris Jones paying the money to get said former school worker, by the way, out of prison on a 9-year sentence? Because if Chris Jones is paying the school to get the money back, I'm for it, right? Good for him. However, if Chris Jones, I want to be very clear here. If Chris Jones is paying the 1.5 to get her out of prison, what kind of message does that send? What kind of message do we get from that, hey, yeah, she committed a crime. She stole $1.5 million worth of chicken wings, but this rich NFL player is going to pay for the wings and pay somebody so that she can get out of prison? So I'm a little confused here. Like I said, if he's paying the money back to the school district, I'm for it, and I applaud Chris Jones. But what's the intention? That's where my mind immediately goes. What is the intention behind Chris Jones trying to help out here? Because in his tweet on at Stone Cold Jones on Twitter, Chris Jones says, I'll pay for the wings that she stole to get her free. So if his intention is to get her free out of jail, does that send a message to kids that, hey, you can steal and you can take $1.5 million worth of product from your job, and if you go viral for it, maybe some NFL player will bail you out of jail, and there will be no repercussions? Because to me, that's what that message screams, right? No, Chris Jones shouldn't pay the $1.5 million. If she stole the chicken wings from the school district, pay the fine, pay the time, right? What do they say? You do the crime, you do the time. You steal the wings, you go to the clink for 9 years, in Chicago at least. JD says on the YouTube stream, I hope it's going to the school and she is getting out of prison because he's paying it. If so, I flat out do not understand. he could influence hundreds of families with 1.5 million who haven't stolen, that would be absolute bullcrap. I guess it's no different from us as taxpayers paying for prisoners to be in prison for crimes they commit. Well, JD, the message there is, I guess, you can steal things and get away with it, right? The world we live in, people think you can steal things and be a thief with no repercussions, right? That's what I gather from this. I don't know. That I find it odd. I find it odd that Chris Jones, look, I'm all for helping somebody out. Did she make a mistake? A mistake to me is a one-time order of chicken wings for, let's call it $2,600, and then it never happening again. I've made a lot of mistakes as managers at other places where I have been employed, but I don't continue to rack up the bill to $1.5 million, especially when it comes to the old chicken wings or the chicken wangs, however you call it, however you say it, however you pronounce it. It's fascinating, though, isn't it? I mean, it is absolutely fascinating. $1.5 million worth of chicken wings. You steal it, no repercussions, no biggie. Here's the money. Get her out of jail. All right, coming up next, fantasy football. Do's and don'ts. Wire to Wire has a fantasy league. I believe it's full, if not almost full. JD can probably correct me. He might know if it's full. I think we've had some join today. We actually had a 20-man league. We had to split it into 10 and 10, so it would be more fun. But coming up next, I want to give the best fantasy options for your team, all right here on the Fan Upstate. As of right now, we have one spot remaining in our wire-to-wire fantasy league. It got so big, it got so popular that we had to create 2 leagues. This spawned out of nowhere last week, and we did it on the fly. Created one league, and thanks to JD, Shane, and Mike, Tolo Mike, who talked to me yesterday at Local Q, thanks to them, we have split that sucker into 2. Instead of 20, we now have 2 leagues of 10. I don't know why when I made the league. I guess I wasn't thinking. So I opened the league up for as many could join. And then after it got full at 20, JD, Shane, and Tolo Mike said, look, 20 is great, but that's going to be difficult because there are 32 teams, right? If you got 20 members, not everybody's guaranteed a backup quarterback. Players are going to be very thin, and that was simply me just not thinking. Wasn't thinking that one. So thanks to those guys, I split it up. And we now have 2 teams of 10. And by the way, I believe they're now all full because we just had a Tolo text in and say that he or she wanted in. So, texter from the 516, I'll send you the link momentarily as soon as I get it pulled up right here on my computer. I just got to sign in, and then I will send you the link. That way you have it. Oh, so fantasy football. What's interesting about this is I am someone who does enjoy fantasy. However, I have not played in several years. When Diesel and I were talking about this last week, I said, look, I'll do it. I just hadn't played in a long time. I haven't had time. Diesel said last week that he wasn't going to play. He said, look, I don't have time for it. And I get it. It's time consuming. However, here I am this year. I'm going to do it. And it's one of those things where I'm going to have to reacclimate myself, remind myself that I need to be on top of this, because the biggest mistake you can make, I would assume, and Tolos, tell me if I'm wrong here, the biggest mistake you can make in fantasy is just forget it and leave it, right? Because if you do that, you're just going to plummet. And sometimes I'll get busy and forget to change my lineup. And so I think I'll be okay this year, but my worry is if I forget to set my lineup, I've got to get, I tell you, it's been probably 5 or 6 years since I've played. I've got to get reacclimated to it, remind myself how soon I have to set my lineup. And I don't even know right now. I don't even know as of right now how soon you have to set your lineup before Sunday. Well, actually it'd be before Thursday, right? Because the games start on Thursday with Thursday night football. I don't even know when you have to have the lineup set. So it might take some training. It might take some help from the Tolos. But texter from the 451, I did send you the link. And if you join, the leagues are now full. Texter from the 344 says, no, that was JD's fault. I told you 16 to 20, but I also didn't want to limit 12 people playing. Not sure who that texter is, if that's Shane or who it is from the 344. But listen, texter says, don't ever take the blame for anything. Always blame JD. I didn't think about it. When I made the 20-team league, I felt like an idiot yesterday talking to Mike because Tolo Mike at Local Q was like, 20 is going to be tough. And I said, why? He said, not everybody's going to have a backup quarterback. So I felt like a big dummy. But we fixed it thanks to the help from our Tolos. Our Tolos are the best. I had to have some assistance last night figuring out how to split that thing up. So our 2 fantasy leagues are full. Let's see, before we get into the players, who you need to pick, and the best players on the board this year, let's look and see who are in the leagues. We'll start with wire-to-wire league number 2. I have myself. I see JD. I see Madcraft. I see Dalton. I see Shane, Steven, Trey, Josh, Lincoln, Michael, Josh, and Trey. 2 Joshes. And then if we go to league number 1, which is wire-to-wire league 1, we also have a full league there as well. Myself, Grant, Michael, Matthew, Jared, Tim, Brian, Turner, Jeff, Joey, and Ethan. So we're slam full on the wire-to-wire fantasy league. if you didn't get in, I apologize, but you've got a Tolo. You've got to turn it on and leave it on. On the stream, on the YouTube stream, says, Shane, you got to stay active. Set your lineup, waivers, get the waivers in, make trades. See, what do you mean get the waivers in? How do you do that? How do you do that, Shane? I don't want to make trades. Do I? I'm telling you, man, it's been a while since I've done it. I'm admitting it's been several years since I've done fantasy football. So we'll see how it goes. Cole may finish at the bottom, but we'll see. We'll see. Some of the top players to pick, though, if you are in our wire-to-wire fantasy league, how do you feel about these players? They have them broken up into tiers on the website when looking at fantasy players. If you're playing in another league, I want to hear from you as well. 71307, start your text with the word fan. Phone lines, it's the renewal by Anderson of the Carolinas fan phone. They're open. 844-326-3663 is the way you can get in touch with us on the phone lines. It seems as if the general consensus behind the experts, if you will, the experts, the ones who are in the know, it seems as if it is an agreement that Christian McCaffrey, RB1 for the San Francisco 49ers, is the surefire answer for the number one overall pick. Tolos, if you have the number one overall pick in your fantasy league, who are you taking? Who are you going to pick? And if I'm not mistaken, I believe our two leagues are randomized. So when it comes to the draft, which is Sunday night, by the way, I believe it's totally random on who picks where. I could be wrong on that, but I think it is. So whoever gets the number one overall pick, who's your guy? Who's your pick? 71307, start your text with the word fan. Do you have concerns, though, with Christian McCaffrey when it comes to his injuries? Or do you not look at injuries? Because I want to hear from you guys. When it comes to picking players, especially with your number one overall pick, are you okay picking guys who have been injury prone in the past? I don't know. Like, that's what I'm saying. I haven't been in the game in a while in terms of playing fantasy football. So obviously McCaffrey seems like somebody who's going to rack up the points. But do you factor in injury-prone players in your decisions on who you take and where? JT in Greer chimes in on the text line. JT says Lamar Jackson for him. Ooh, really? You're going Lamar Jackson with your number one overall pick? See, I thought, again, when I used to play fantasy football, I thought it was frowned upon to take a quarterback that early. Is it not anymore? I'm just asking because I don't know. I thought you usually waited till round 2 to get your quarterbacks. Or do all the quarterbacks go early now? That's what I don't know. So if that's the case, if a run of quarterbacks happens, let's say you do take Christian McCaffrey with your number one overall pick, and then everybody else in the league goes on a big run of quarterbacks, aren't you kind of screwed? So does that not make you almost want to have to take a quarterback first? It's interesting. All right, let's see. JD on the YouTube stream chimes in. Trades are rare, but waiver wire was my niche. Lowest win total gets first choice, but if someone gets injured and their backup performs well and they're a free agent, you can claim them on waiver wire. So just like a free agent, basically, right? Shane says on the YouTube stream, that was supposed to be put waivers in, autocorrect. To put them in after draft, you'll click on the players tab, hit the add button, and then it will likely make you drop someone. So to add a guy off the waivers, basically, you have to drop somebody. I don't know about that. Steven on the Facebook stream says, don't do it. He will get hurt this year. I assume talking about Christian McCaffrey. Steven, is that who you're talking about on the Facebook stream? That's what I'm asking, though, right? That's what I don't know. How much do you Tolos factor in injuries in terms of picking in the fantasy draft? Because Christian McCaffrey seems like a surefire bet, a surefire pick at number one overall or even top 3. But we can't ignore the injuries, can we? Shane says typically you can wait on a quarterback. Well, that's the thing, though. If you wait and then JT and Greer goes and picks Lamar Jackson, don't that put pressure on everybody else? That's tough, man. That's tough. I'm excited. I don't know if I'll do any good, but I'm excited. Texter from the 516 says, either CMC, Hill, or Lamb. So Christian McCaffrey, Tyreek Hill, or CeeDee Lamb would be my pick for the first, says a texter from the 516. I like those a lot. And I'll tell you this. Tyreek Hill seems like another surefire pick as well. And then when you look at CeeDee Lamb, that's an interesting one because they don't have a ton of weapons on the receiving core, do the Cowboys, do my Dallas Cowboys, right? So I don't know. I don't know that CeeDee Lamb, he's the only guy, but the bad part about that is the contract issues right now.
Sure. What's your first name?
Do the contract issues and the holdout and training camp, do those go away? Or do those impact the guy when it comes to picking them in a fantasy draft? That's fascinating. Text line blowing up right now. 71307. Start your text with the word fan. I'll try my best to get to all of them on the text line. We do have a caller on the phone lines as well on the Renewal by Anderson of the Carolinas fan phone. Let's see here. Texter from the 304. McCaffrey, Breece Hall, or Bijan Robinson. Take a number one running back. Trust me, says a texter from the 304. That's what I don't know. I don't know. Trust you, but you gonna pick over Lamar. How do you weigh if you have an early pick? How do you weigh a guy like Christian McCaffrey or a Tyreek Hill, which I think is a good pick? How do you weigh that versus having a guy like a Lamar sitting there? I don't know that I fully understand the quarterback strategy because I don't want to go out there with Derek Carr as my quarterback, right? That's my worry. That's my concern. I'll get stuck with Derek Carr or Sam Darnold if I take CMC first. All right, let's go to the Renewal by Anderson of the Carolinas fan phone. Ben, who do we have?
We got Dale. Wants to talk
Dale
about
wants to
fantasy.
chime in. Dale, what's up, man? Dale, we got you now?
Yep, I'm here.
What's up, man?
Hey, let's educate you real quick. First, is your league PPR or standard scoring?
Oh, you're asking the wrong person. I have no idea. I'm a dummy. You're asking me if
Okay.
it's PPR or standard scoring. How do I find that out?
It makes a very huge – it plays a very big part because if it's PPR, each time a receiver or a running back catches the ball, it's an extra point.
Okay.
So that plays huge with the first pick. Okay. Typically, you can take quarterbacks later, especially if you feel like you can ride one quarterback like a Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, something like that all season, and then only worry about the bye week, which will allow you to build depth in your other skill position.
Okay.
Okay. PPR receivers, there's only a few really, really good ones. You know, you got your Amon-Ra St. Brown. I really don't know how CeeDee Lamb's going to be this year, or even if he plays because of the whole contract dispute.
Mm-hmm.
Justin Jefferson, who knows what's going on with that quarterback. Tyreek Hill's a good option. Amon-Ra St. Brown's a good option. Receiver's going to be kind of thin. You know, Stephon Diggs, how's he going to mesh down there with Stroud?
Yeah. No, I'm with you. So let me ask you this, Dale. Which would you prefer? Which would you say is the better route to go, PPR or standard?
PPR. I believe PPR is the way to go.
Okay.
Which would afford you the luxury of waiting to get a quarterback. You know, you will have that person who will try to combo as well, and that's key too. So, like, if you have Kelsey, you want to get Mahomes. You know, if you have Lamar Jackson, you might want to pair that with Mark Andrews or, you know, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. I mean, trying to get those because if he's throwing touchdowns, you're going to throw them to those people. So that's just extra points that you can get. With the first overall pick in a PPR league, it's going to be tough to turn down a receiver like Tyreek Hill or Jamar Chase. Yes, Christian McCaffrey does catch balls out of the backfield, but you do have to worry about that injury bug. And he is injury-ridden. Even though last year the injury bug didn't get him, it seemed like it got everybody else on that team, he stayed healthy. He had a lot of touches. He's not a spring chicken no more, man. He's what, 30-something now?
Yeah, he is. He's getting older. I don't know exactly how old, but let's see. Christian McCaffrey is, you said 30. What'd you guess?
I said 30.
That should be right. Let me look. He's
I feel
he's
like
28. He's 28.
Hey. Okay, so a running back years, he's like 31.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay, so it does seem as on the text line, it does seem as if everybody agrees with you that PPR is the way to go. So if we go PPR, your advice, Dale, is go receiver early.
You got to get a top flight receiver, yeah, because backs are interchangeable. You got a lot of scat backs out there, like he said, Breece Hall, Najee Harris, even though he had a down year last year. Bijan Robinson's probably going to be really good this year. Christian McCaffrey he's back one of one. I mean, there's him and then there's those other tier backs. But with it being PPR, receivers, top flight receivers are very, very thin. There's not many of them.
Okay.
And if you can ride one quarterback throughout, that's going to afford you to build depth in other. You know,
Sure.
You get your slot receivers like a Cooper Kupp. You know, he might have a resurgence here. Puka Nakua's hurt. You know, you kind of want to try to stay away from, you know, receivers that have hamstring issues, because those are going to linger all year.
For sure. Yeah, I'm with it.
You know?
Hey, good
And
stuff,
doing
Dale.
doing a draft Sunday on week 2 of the preseason, that's a little sketchy, man, because you might get busted on that third week.
Well, we're not starting until the regular season, though.
Correct, yeah, but I mean, if you afford and waste a draft pick on a receiver that ends up being out, I mean, who's going to feel bad? You are, because everyone else going to be laughing at you.
Well, that's a good point. That's a good point. But I'm not going to do that. You know me, I would never make a mistake in the draft like that, right? First time doing it in a long time.
I can give you the number. I won last year. Granted, the team was only 8 deep, but I waited. I went through one quarterback. I picked the quarterback from waiver wire, and I ended up winning the whole thing.
There you go. There you go. Thanks for the
sir.
call, Dale. 844 fan phone. That's the way you can chime in. Fantasy conversation right now, blowing up the text line as well as the comment section on the stream. I lost my place on the text line. I will try to get back. The texts are pouring in right now, so I'll try to get back and get caught up on that. But I like his advice. I have been told by our Tolos that I did not set the league up for PPR, so I did it wrong. Well, I guess it's not wrong. People maybe have a preference to go standard over PPR, but good explanation there by Dale. As long as Shane says we can change it. So as long as we can change it, Dell says if you change it to points per reception, then you got to go receiver. See, we were going Christian McCaffrey, and then it changed to quarterback, and now I'm being told go receiver. So if I pick receiver first, I'm giving up a chance to get McCaffrey and giving up a chance to get Lamar. Oh, this is going to be tough. This is going to be really, really tough. We'll continue the conversation on the other side. A ton of text to get to. Who do you think is the safe, surefire number 1 overall pick in the fantasy draft? I'll get back to the text line and take your calls as well. I'm Cole Bryson, and this is the Fan Upstate. Tiger pal Rachel on Twitter says, at the Cole Bryson, I have Joe Burrow and Christian McCaffrey on my team. I'm a little concerned about injuries. Going to make sure I have some good backups. Well, you hate to say this, but yeah, Tiger pal Rachel, you might want to be concerned about both of them, right? Because, as we said, McCaffrey's had injuries, and last year Burrow, and I don't even think that was his first injury. I could be wrong, but I think he's had one or two. JP on Twitter says, I think Cheetah is going to be that dude. Talking about Tyreek Hill. Who do you have as the safest number one overall pick? The text line has gone nuts. I will try to get caught up. And Alex texted me about the PPR. He said, nah, PPR, you go running back first if you're top 3 pick. If not, go wide receiver first. Because if you have a top 3 running back, they're going to get receptions too. So you're doubling up on points with that player, rushing yards and receiving yards. But if they aren't a top 3 running back, you're probably not going to double up on it that well. So you're going to go with a wide receiver. Intriguing. Very, very intriguing. Very intriguing. What say you? 71307 is the way you can text the show. I literally got to one player. And then all of a sudden, everybody just started texting in. So we talked about McCaffrey. I do think there's value in CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, and Justin Jefferson. What do you think about those 4 in particular? CeeDee Lamb, the reason I say that is with Dallas, excuse me, Dallas, I don't think is going to have a run game this year. Zeke's like 74 years old, right? And Rico Dowdle from South Carolina can't stay healthy. I don't expect Dallas's run game to be much. So I do see value in CeeDee Lamb from that aspect, as long as the contract stuff doesn't impact his play on the field, which I don't know if it will or not, but hopefully it doesn't. Usually by the start of the season, they get all that wrapped up when dealing with a player as big and as important as CeeDee Lamb, right? Tyreek Hill, I certainly like. Several people have chimed in and said Tyreek Hill. Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. My only concern with JJ is you just lost JJ McCarthy, season-ending injury. Now you're relying on Sam Darnold to be that dude. Does having a backup quarterback like Sam Darnold impact your decision there with Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase? Because you would think that QB1 will get the ball to WR1 a lot more than QB2 will get the ball to WR2, right? So that does scare me a little bit there. Jamar Chase, I love that. With Joe Burrow being back, I think that's a great option. Someone earlier on the text line mentioned Bijan Robinson of the Atlanta Falcons. Bijan Robinson out of Texas. I really, really, really loved Bijan coming out of college. I wanted my Dallas Cowboys to pick Bijan in the draft. They didn't. Obviously, he goes to Atlanta. You know what? That's a good RB1 or 2. I don't know how many would consider him RB1, but he's a good option. Breece Hall from the Jets. Several people have texted on the text line and suggested Breece Hall. I believe Dale, who called in, suggested Amon-Ra St. Brown. A.J. Brown in Philly's an interesting choice. Garrett Wilson for the Jets. And then I also like Jonathan Taylor at Indiana as a little bit of a sleeper. Maybe he could be a sleeper. Let me go back to the text line. Sherb chimes in, all caps, says, hey, Cole, does the upset pick challenge start next week? Sherb, it starts very, very soon, and it is brought to you by Ingles Markets this season. The upset pick challenge in 2024 is back, and it's bigger than ever. It's sponsored, and we are excited. It'll be very, very soon, Sherb. So I know a lot of our Tolos want to be a part of the Upset Picks Challenge, and you certainly can be a part of it. It will start very, very soon. Back to the text line. Texter from the 843 chimes in. That guy isn't winning if he drafts Lamar Jackson first pick. Never pick quarterback in the first round. See, that's what I always heard. That's what people always told me was never go quarterback first. And I know that, like, getting your quarterback first is a safe quarterback pick, but what does it do for the rest of your roster? For the rest of your roster, let me get a drink of water so I'll quit coughing on you. What does it do for the rest of the roster when it comes to guys like Christian McCaffrey and guys who can rack up the points? I don't know. I agree with you, Texter. I'm not going to go quarterback one in the first round. I've always heard that it's better to wait until the second round to get your quarterback. So I know that people disagree and have differing opinions on that. Texter from the 516 says, yeah, CMC might get the Madden cover curse. Didn't think about that. Good point. 344 says, if someone takes Lamar first, it almost forces someone to take Mahomes second. That'd make me sick. And that's my point, Texter from the 344 in the last segment. I'm good. I'm good not taking a quarterback early as long as somebody else don't, because if somebody else does, isn't that usually when you see the run of quarterbacks? Isn't that usually when you see everybody else caving in and the quarterback's coming off the board? That's what concerns me as well. I don't want to take a quarterback that early, but you're right. If Lamar goes first round, it wouldn't surprise me one bit to see everyone else follow suit. Let's see. Joey chimes in on the text line and says he did check. The league is standard, not PPR. And again, PPR is points per reception. Thank you for clarifying there, Joey. I will try to change that before we get started. Corn Chip says kickers only. Kickers in the first round, right? You got to go get that kicker, man. You got to go get that big leg. Oh, that's brutal. That's brutal. Keith and TR chimes in. Keith says, last time I played fantasy, I took Andrew Luck round 1 and got dogged for it. Quarterback goes later, says Keith and TR. Well, I'm with you. I'm with you on that. 901 chimes in. Most of my points last year came from my quarterback each week. And it should, right? Unless you've got a stud receiver that's just going out there. And I mean, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong on this. I'm not looking at last year's points, but if I'm not mistaken, CeeDee Lamb last year was very, very high in overall players' points. I do believe I saw that correctly. Texter from the 451 says, I would change it to half-point PPR league, so a half a point per reception league, and change the draft to the Sunday before Labor Day. So Dale mentioned that. Texter, I ask you the same question. What's the benefit there? Why is it risky having the draft this week instead of the Sunday before Labor Day? Do we need to push the draft back? We can push the draft back if we have to. I've already made enough mistakes with this draft. I made it too big. You know, you let the host of the radio show who hadn't played fantasy football in 5 years go in there and mess everything up, but we've got all the issues fixed. And if the last issue is the time of the draft, we can certainly move that as well. Whatever you guys think, man. Listen, it's everybody's league. It's everybody's league. I'm here for the Tolos. I'm a man of the Tolos, okay? Texter from the 978 chimes in. Got to take a running back number 1 overall in the fantasy football draft. So Christian McCaffrey is my vote. I do believe, according to the text line and the stream, Christian McCaffrey does have more votes than just about anyone else. Seems as CMC is the odds-on favorite here. Let me look. Joey chimes in on the text line. If you had the number one pick, it's CMC, period. Says Joey. No ifs, ands, or buts about it, I guess. Everyone else will go wide receiver in the first couple of rounds. Well, my luck, guess what? My luck, I'll take CMC. I'll get the first overall pick, right? And I'll take CMC first, and he'll get hurt. First game of the year, my luck. I hope not. Texter from the 978 says you could draft Breece Hall and name your team Breece Lightning. I like it, Texter. 201 chimes in. What? No Jahmyr Gibbs or Puka ETN? Those are good ones. Certainly good ones. Keith in Fountain Inn chimes in and says, I love Uncle Cole. Well, I certainly seem like Uncle Cole today after I had to get the fantasy draft fixed 3 different times. Seems more like Grandpa Cole. Going in and changing all the league settings to get it right after I didn't set it properly. But thanks to the Tolos, I think we're back on track. Joey says, do not change the draft. I'll have no reception to the draft the Sunday before Labor Day. I don't think we're going to change it. I don't think we need to, do we? Let's see on the stream. Let's go to the stream now. Madcraft, points per reception just means the receiver gets an extra point for every catch they make, regardless of yards gained. So we had games where Keenan Allen would only have 50 receiving yards, but he caught the ball 12 times. That's 17 total points. Would just be 5 points in standard. Okay, I got you. So was that half a PPR or is that a whole PPR? Shane says on the YouTube stream, I don't know about safest, but I think Jamar Chase is going to explode this year. Well, I think Jamar Chase was on my he was on my list. I agree there, Shane. Jamar Chase with Joe Burrow back, and I really feel as if Cincinnati in 2024 has something to prove. I really feel as if Joe Burrow has something to prove. And I know the AFC is just absolutely loaded with quarterbacks and loaded with talent, more so than the NFC. But let's look at head-to-head, shall we? Head-to-head, Patrick Mahomes versus Joe Burrow. Well, guess who has had Patrick Mahomes' number? Joe Burrow has, right? Joe Burrow has. And if there's anybody that can do it, I think it's Joe Burrow. And when I say do it, I mean take over the AFC temporarily, because Patrick Mahomes is a generational type quarterback that will year in and year out consistently have his team in the hunt. But in my opinion, if there's somebody that can do it, I definitely think it's Joe Burrow there. I really do. So I'm in agreement that Jamar Chase seems like a solid pick. And if I'm not mistaken, it's like 3-1 or 3-0 with Joe and Patrick Mahomes. He's, like I said, he's played them well. He really has. He really has. All right, let me look back at my list to see if I missed anybody. What about Saquon Barkley in Philadelphia is like RB2 or 3, depending on how many running backs you have? Because Saquon Barkley's interesting in my mind. Coming from New York to Philadelphia, it's fascinating because last year when the Philadelphia Eagles fell flat on their face toward the end of the season, that's really what they lacked. Like, the Eagles were so hot last year, it was almost as if they had a cool off, and people expected a cool off, but I don't think people expected a cool off to the degree that the Eagles had. And they just weren't able down the stretch last year, especially watching them against my Cowboys, because I do pay attention to Philadelphia. I pull for them to lose every game. But down the stretch, they did not have a reliable run game. So I think Philadelphia in 2024 will be a little bit more run heavy in terms of getting the running backs involved. with Saquon. Still a really good back, right? Still a really, really good running back in the NFL. And then another fascinating situation is how good's a guy like Brandon Ayuk? I mean, how valuable is he if we don't even know where he's going to play right now? I know the San Francisco 49ers are still trying to keep him in town in a sense, but also I heard that they might have a trade worked out with the Pittsburgh Steelers to send Brandon Ayuk to Pittsburgh. So he's an interesting one to keep your eye on as well. All right, great stuff there from our Tolos when it comes to the fantasy football conversation. I want to get back to our Daily Wires, update you on what's going on in the sports world. We also have another interview coming up in about 20 minutes on the program. Stay tuned, turn it on, and leave it on right here on the Fan Upstate. I was going to run through the Daily Wires here, but I made a change, an executive decision. I hope that's okay with you, Tolos. What's Tolos stand for? I had somebody ask me that the other day. Turn it on, leave it on. Turn on, leave on. TOLO. That's what we ask you to do right here on the Fan Upstate. So, there's football on tonight. Did you know that? NFL Network, 7 o'clock, just over an hour from now. The Eagles and the Patriots, both teams undefeated. I feel weird saying that because it is the preseason and the wins and losses really don't matter. But both are undefeated right now. So we'll see. What's interesting is Kenny Pickett, Bailey Zappi. You know, we talked about this a little earlier. I believe it was last week. I'm not a Patriots fan. Never have been. But I look at this team and I find it very intriguing right now. With several areas of the Patriots. Number one, the intriguing part to me with this team that plays tonight at 7 o'clock versus the Eagles is the quarterback room. You've got 4 quarterbacks that outside of Jacoby Brissett and maybe Bailey Zappi, what do you do? Because you have Drake May, who you used an early pick for, right? You have Joe Milton III out of Tennessee. You have Bailey Zappi, who's been on the roster. Not a bad quarterback, but I don't think he's the guy, right? I don't think he's the answer. And then you have Jacoby Brissett, who's a veteran in the league. Good backup. Not a bad quarterback. Seems like Jacoby Brissett's probably 110. Man, it seems, I don't know. I don't know why, but it seems like it was a long, long time ago when Jacoby Brissett was in college, and he is 31. So, yeah, he is getting up there in NFL years. So, yeah, it's an interesting storyline with New England. And when you look at this quarterback room, who comes out on top for the regular season? That's an intriguing question to me that they're going to have to address. The reality of it is you took Drake May early in the draft, but you also have Joe Milton III, who I'm going to make a bold prediction here. I'm going to say Joe Milton's the best quarterback on the roster. You talk about playmaker, athleticism, the ability to go out and just make dudes miss, make plays, make throws. Joe Milton might be the guy. I'm not saying give up on Drake May. Drake May's a really good quarterback. I like Drake May, but boy, have you seen Joe Milton play lately? That dude's good. That dude's really good. And again, it's preseason. I don't know what Joe Milton will be when the lights are bright. Because right now the lights are bright, but they're not bright. You know what I mean? The lights are bright when you're playing in an NFL preseason game, but when you're playing in an NFL game against starters in a regular season, they're bright. And those Joe Milton lights haven't gotten bright yet. So when they get bright, we'll see how Joe Milton does. I just think he might be a really, really good option. And I'm just telling you, watch out for that quarterback situation, because a huge storyline coming up could be first-round pick Drake May's not announced as the starting quarterback in New England. I'm just saying. Let's see. Shane Barrett chimes in on the YouTube stream. If the Eagles don't fall apart, we would be talking about the Jackson. Yeah. Shane says if the Eagles didn't fall apart last year, we'd be talking about Jacksonville and their collapse. 100%. It was bad. There's no doubt about it that the collapse that happened by Jacksonville was brutal, right? And I think Trevor Lawrence took a lot of the blame for that, rightfully so. I think that there's definitely room for Trevor to improve in 2024. At the end of the day, when it comes to Jacksonville, obviously I'll pull for him because of Trevor Lawrence. I love Trevor Lawrence. But the reality of it is, I don't know that I'm sold on their receiver room. I don't know that I'm sold on Trevor having legit weapons. Again, I could be wrong, but Doug Peterson's a good coach. I like Doug Peterson. I think he is a good coach for Trevor. Obviously, a lot better than Urban Meyer was in year one, right? But I do believe that the jury's still out on this receiver room. I know they've had guys step up in the preseason, and Trevor's made some connections early, and that's good. But again, the lights aren't bright yet. And when the lights get bright, people have to perform. And it'll be interesting. I'm a Trevor guy. I hope I see this year massive improvement and consistency from that team and Doug Peterson. But talking about Philadelphia and New England tonight, when it comes to New England, I don't know if you'll see Jalen Hurts. I doubt it. He's a veteran guy that I don't believe necessarily needs to see the field in the preseason. I don't know if it's been announced. I know that he'll be dressed out and he'll be ready, but I don't know that he'll be in action tonight. And there's a lot of talk about Bryce Young and whether or not he should play. Two totally different situations, right? Jalen Hurts tonight, what does he gain from playing 12 snaps? I don't know that he gains a ton. But Bryce Young, by the way, the Carolina Panthers this weekend, I don't know if it's been announced yet, but I think the Panthers will see Bryce Young in preseason eventually. If it's not this week, maybe week 3. They host the Jets on Saturday at 7 p.m. So it'll be interesting. Look, preseason football in the NFL is just that. It's preseason football. You can watch it, you can analyze it, but the biggest thing is don't take too much away from it, right? No need to have knee-jerk reactions and overreact to things that happen in the preseason. And I'm not going to do that with Bryce Young. I'm not. I think he needs reps, but I don't know that throwing him out there with a bunch of 2s and 3s is the right answer. So we'll see. A little high school football talk. On the other side, we will be joined by the head football coach of the Gaffney Indians, Coach Dan Jones. It is his last season as the head coach of the Gaffney Indians, and just a terrific job he's done at Gaffney. He's been a part of 7 state championships, been there a long time, and this will be his final season. High school football starts next Friday night. A lot of jamborees and scrimmages going on this week and tomorrow night. Obviously, we'll do high school football. We'll have conversations and touch on high school football a few times during the week on this show. And then a reminder, the Saturday Scramble starts this Saturday with myself and Alex Guest, all right here on the Fan Upstate.
the intro as normal, and then just bring in the interview maybe close to the end of the intro. Gotcha. Burns promo, legal ID.
Hey, this is Cole Bryson. Burns Rebels football is back on August 23rd as the Rebels travel to TL have to open the 2024 football campaign. With Nixon Field getting a much-needed facelift, the Rebels will be on the road all season long. Join me, Lane Fowler, and Sam Clark every Friday night on 97.1 FM in Spartanburg, 97.7 FM in Greenville, and on the free Odyssey app. Burns football, powered by Founders Federal Credit Union and your local Ingles market.
Cool. Oh, there. Cool. And yeah, you got Ingles at the end of this one. So, after all this.
Oh, no music, no music, no music, no music, no music, no music. Kill it, kill it, kill it, kill it.
Right. That was it. Top of the hour. Okay.
Let it breathe for a second before you put it up. So what I do is I'll pot it up and then play it that way. You don't miss anything. So you can go ahead and start it. I would run it a little down just in case. A little down. Perfect. Yep. It is Wire to Wire, hour number 4 of the program. So good to be with you on this Thursday afternoon. High school football jamboree scrimmages happening this week, and week 0 kicks off 1 week from tomorrow. And to give you a little preview of high school football, I bring on Dan Jones, the head football coach of the Gaffney Indians. Coach, appreciate you hopping on with me. I know the anticipation this season might be more than normal for you and the Gaffney Indians.
Well, certainly is, and not a problem. Glad to be here, Cole.
Absolutely, Coach. Let me ask you this. Throughout the spring, throughout the summer, and now that you guys are in the fall camp, how have you as a coach balanced the normal day-to-day walk of preparing for the season versus the bittersweetness, maybe the anticipation, the reality that this will be your last season as the head football coach of the Gaffney Indians?
Well, Cole, I guess it's probably like anybody. It's bittersweet, something you kind of reminisce about that time coming, but I'll miss all the camaraderie with the coaches and the fellowship with the kids, and then you guys. There's a lot to be missed, but certainly there's a lot to be gained. Me and my wife certainly want to travel a little bit. Got a daughter who's about to get married, so life goes on, and as far as this team, we the focus is on that. So it's not been a problem as far as that.
Coach, we talk a lot of high school football on the Fan Upstate, and especially on this show, Wire to Wire, and even on the Saturday Scramble, which debuts Saturday morning, 8 to 10 a.m. right here on the Fan Upstate. Do you think there's a more coveted job in the state than the head football coach of the Gaffney Indians?
I hadn't really thought a lot about it, but it's certainly been a blessing for me to, having played here and just the excitement that Friday night generates here and what it does to the kids. They from Little League on, they can't wait to be a Gaffney Indian. And I don't think it's that way everywhere. And I've coached several other places and didn't feel that feeling there. So no doubt it's been a blessing for me to be a part of that. And it's something that, I cherish, no doubt.
Coach, I can definitely speak from experience. This is my 12th season broadcasting high school football. I've been a part of the Boiling Springs broadcast coming through high school, Burns broadcast, and obviously a part of the Gaffney broadcast last year. And to your point, you are exactly right. It's not that way everywhere. And you guys, what you've built, the Gaffney culture, it's one of a kind. It's unique. So excited for you as well. But let's get to the team this year. I think everybody wants to talk about the quarterback position first and foremost. It is one of the more important positions on the field. What have you seen from your new quarterback, Javon Gilmore, thus far this fall?
Well, there's no doubt it's one of the more important positions, that's for sure, and it's at every level. But, it's a learning process for him, coming from Ben Lippin, and, you know, he's got to learn our offense, our signals, you know, there's a lot to that job. And, you know, he's gone head first into it. He's been excited about it, and he's learning each day and each practice. Feel like he's getting a little better. Now we got 2 scrimmages under our belt, and feel like he picked it up a little bit from the Greer scrimmage to the Greenwood scrimmage the other night. And hopefully that'll continue. If that continues, then, you know, the young man's got a bright future, and also this team's got a bright future.
Coach, from your experience coaching in a place like Gaffney, when you have a new quarterback come in, do you think those quarterbacks for a short period of time experience a deer in the headlights look, just not having played at that kind of stage before?
There's no doubt about it. And, you know, and he's going to hit that JL man that first week. But, you know, that's a growing process too, you know, and I'm sure just in our practices, you know, the game's a little faster and you know, especially with our defense, we feel like that's one of the best things about our defense is the speed. So it's a learning process, and yeah, we've seen some definitely bright eyes.
Coach, your last season coaching as the head football coach of the Gaffney Indians, what are your thoughts on 5A going to 2 divisions this season?
You know, Cole, when I first started, Gaffney was anywhere from 12th to 14th and in the Big 16. Now I think we're 44th out of 54. So, you know, there's been a lot of growth. And it's not that we lost that many students. It's just that, you know, Greenville and Columbia and down at Horry County, you know, they've just gained so much in those areas that it kind of moved us down. But the 2 divisions, you know, I certainly think that's a fair way to do it. And I think, you know, after you got out of the Big 16, when you really looked at that, I kind of feel, and I've been a part of those state championships, but Big 16 was some really good games. But, you know, the lead up to that was probably not as tough as it is now. You know, you take 16 teams and cut them into 8 games, and you know, couple of those games don't seem to be quite as tough as what they are now.
Dan Jones joining us right here on Wire to Wire on the Fan Upstate on this Thursday afternoon. Coach, your program this offseason has garnered quite the attention from colleges. I don't know that I've ever seen as many colleges brace the doors of Gaffney High School and your football program as they have this offseason. Talk to us about some of the players that you have that will be going to play at the college level after this fall.
Well, you know, certainly Shedrick Surratt, he's a coveted offensive lineman. And when you have those, you're going to get a lot of interest. So, you know, we've got a lot of players that can play at different schools, no doubt. But certainly you get a lot of numbers when you talk about an offensive lineman that's hadn't committed yet. So he had, you know, Florida State, Virginia Tech, he had them all in here. So, and then you also got a quarterback that's 6'5" that people are, you know, looking at and salivating a little bit. Hey, what can this guy be? And, you know, we think he has a tremendous upside. Certainly he has a lot of growth to do, but, you know, he's the guy, and, you know, everybody's going to come and take a look. So we've had a lot of big schools. We've had USC. Can you believe Southern Cal's here recruiting? We've had Colorado, UCLA. Which these are schools that we've never had. And, of course, you know, some of them now in the ACC and the SEC, so it makes it a little different there also. And also had Alabama to visit, and we've never had Alabama here that I'm aware of. It. So it's pretty neat. And, you know, it's special for our kids to, you know, get that opportunity.
Well, Coach, you talk about these new programs coming to Gaffney High School to see your players. Obviously, it benefits the player that's there now, but doesn't that benefit the program and the next head coach going forward for years to come now that these college coaches have laid eyes and know what kind of talent you guys have?
Well, it certainly does. You know, just, you know, getting our name out there among those coaches and them coming here, as you said, and they see, you know, our facilities and say, hey, you know, there's going to be some kids come through there. And, you know, we got not only those two, but, we got another lineman that's supposedly coming on. It's going to be a big player, actually two. Scott Wendover and C.J. Brooks. We got a tailback that's Boston College has offered in East Carolina and several other ones. And we got some other kids that have made offers, So, certainly does up our whatever prestige or among the college coaches. And they know that they want to come and take a look. There's no doubt about that.
Coach, you guys open week 1 against J.L. Mann. You mentioned J.L. Mann earlier. In your time coaching at Gaffney, what do you think about the progress teams in Greenville County, not just J.L. Mann, but other teams in Greenville County have made in terms of being as competitive as they are today? And J.L. Mann's a perfect example of that.
Well, no, Cole, we probably played Hillcrest probably more in Greenville than any of them. And at least we we scrimmaged Greenville the last couple of years, and certainly they've made a lot of progress, and Hillcrest has also, and now J.L. Mann very, very well could have been in the state championship last year. So certainly those guys have made some strides, and I think being in this region with Spartanburg, Burns, and Dorman, Boiling Springs, I think they're going to continue to make strides. So it's been good for us to play them, and Greenville's only 45 minutes up the road, so it can be some good rivalry.
Coach Dan Jones joining us on the program right here on the Fan Upstate. Coach, this season, if someone comes to watch Gaffney football, maybe for the very first time, what do you want them to see? What's your identity offensively and defense going to be for the 2024 season?
Well, hopefully on offense, we are a spread offense, but we're going to get to tailback the ball about half the time. So, and then on defense, I hope they see a team that flies around and loves the game and plays with a lot of emotion and enthusiasm. And if that happens, and the fans will be all jacked up, and it'll be a great atmosphere, and they'll know it was well worth their $7.
Coach, we so much appreciate you hopping on, taking time to join us this afternoon on Wire to Wire. Means a lot to talk to you, and for all the times you have joined us and will join us this football season, we appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Cole. Appreciate you, buddy.
That's Dan Jones, head football coach of the Gaffney Indians. Really appreciate him taking time to join us this afternoon right here on the Fan Upstate. Always a good interview with Dan Jones. And for people that don't know, as we said to start the interview, this will be the final season. Dan Jones will be the head coach of the Gaffney Indians. And I asked him in that interview, earlier in the interview, I asked him if he thought the head football coach job at Gaffney High School was one of the most coveted, and he laughed and being humble as Dan Jones is, he wasn't going to admit it. But I'll tell you, I think it is. There's several in the state that are looked at as prestige and prestigious jobs. Obviously, Dutch Fork, Gaffney, Burns. A lot of people obviously want that job, and there's some in the lower state as well. But he's done a fantastic job, as I said earlier. Been a part of 7 total state championships, and high school football just a week away from kicking off, just over a week away now. Tomorrow will be 1 week exactly. High school is wrapping up jamborees, preseason scrimmages this week, and then next week is week 0, where most of the teams in the upstate are playing. There are some that have their bye week on week 0, but most of the teams will be playing. A lot of preseason jamborees and scrimmages tomorrow. The McDonald's Kickoff Classic tomorrow at Chapman High School. 4 games there, 4 games in the same McDonald's Kickoff Classic, but another location they do it at is at Gaffney. 4 games there. So 8 teams at Gaffney tomorrow night, 8 teams at Chapman. Boiling Springs also hosting a 6-team scrimmage tomorrow night at Boiling Springs High School, and then on Saturday morning, Broome High School hosting a 6-team scrimmage that includes Broome, Spartanburg, and a few other local schools as well. So high school football is just around the corner. And programming note reminder for the best coverage on a Saturday morning of high school football in the upstate, there's one place for you to go. It's the Saturday morning scramble in its 6th season right here on the Fan Upstate with myself and Alex Guest, 8 to 10 a.m. All we do for 2 hours is talk high school football. So if you're a high school football fan, I encourage you to join us this Saturday. As I said, is the first show of the season. We will be live at a different Ingles every week. This week we are at the Ingles on the west side of Spartanburg. It's Warren Abernathy Highway. So if you don't have plans Saturday morning, definitely tune in. But if you have a chance or are in the Spartanburg area, want to see some players and coaches in person, come on out, hang out with us, listen to the show live at Ingles. Always appreciate Ingles for sponsoring the Saturday morning scramble, as well as Founders Federal Credit Union. All right, coming up next, I will get back to my college football playoff predictions. I know that in the 6 o'clock hour, we have a completely different audience than we do in the 3 o'clock hour. And I will tell you who I think will be in the first ever 12-team playoff in college football next. Putting a bow on hour number 4 of Wire to Wire. Appreciate you being a part of the program every day, 3 to 7 p.m. The best sports talk you can find on your radio dial. 97.1 Spartanburg, 97.7 Greenville, anywhere in the world on the free Odyssey app. Everybody likes free, right? Well, if you don't already, I encourage you to get that Odyssey app. AUDACY. Again, AUDACY. It is free, and it's a good place to use the rewind feature. If you missed something during the show, you go back, you listen to whatever you missed. We're also live every single day on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Texter says, when are y'all coming to an Ingalls and Anderson? Comes from a Big Kid Chris. Big Kid Chris, I do believe there's one on the schedule here very soon. It's been several weeks since we've been to Anderson, but we will be coming to an Ingalls near you very, very soon. Big Kid Chris, appreciate you listening to the show in the Big A of Anderson, South Carolina. Greenville 97.7, Spartanburg 97.1. Earlier in the show, I gave my predictions for the 2024 college football playoff. You, right now, can chime in on your thoughts on my predictions as well as your predictions. During the very first segment of the show, when I started this, we had several Tolos send in their entire 1 through 12. I will try to get back to those because I didn't get to all of them earlier in the show. But you know what? When you go through these 12 and try to find just who you want to put in, it's more challenging. It's more challenging than you think. It really is. And there's a few teams that I struggled with. So I'll tell you this. To set the table, when you have to find the 12, you first have to decide who's going to win each conference, correct? So let's start with the SEC. I have Georgia winning the SEC, Clemson winning the ACC. I have Ohio State winning the Big Ten, which I think this year between them and Oregon is going to be a fascinating race for that championship spot. The Big 12, a little bit more difficult to decide. I do think the consensus is that Utah has the team to win the Big 12. But then again, there's some sleepers in there. Is Kansas with Jalen Daniels, are they ready to take that next step? I think Kansas this year will be a very, very good football team. I just don't know if they're ready to take the next step of competing for the Big 12 championship. So then you have the 7 at-large teams after you get your core 4 champions. Then you have the highest-ranked G5 champion. The G5 champion conversation, it's fascinating. I went back and forth on it, but I ended up picking Boise State as my highest-ranked G5 champion coming out of the Mountain West. My 7 at-large, and by the way, Boise State, good head coach in Spencer Danielson. Malachi Nelson, a quarterback transfer from Southern Cal. Ashton Jeanty, one of the better running backs, not just in the Mountain West, but in the country. He's a fantastic, I believe he's one of the top rushers in the Mountain West last year. They're going to have a very good team, a solid stable of returners for Boise State in 2024. So that's why I think they will be the highest-ranked G5 champion. Now, the 7 at-large teams. You can get your thoughts in on who you think the 7 at-large will be. But I'll tell you, buddy, it was tough deciding the last few. The first few, I believe everybody agrees on. I believe for the most part, everybody agrees that Texas this season will find themselves in the college football playoffs. To be quite frank, Texas has the ability to win the darn thing, right? They're good enough to do it. I don't know that they can get past Georgia, but they have a really good team in 2024. So Texas, in my opinion, is a lock to get in. Alabama, I've said it a million times. I could be dead wrong, but I don't think Alabama is taking a back seat to anybody just because they lost Nick Saban. Kalen DeBoer is a very good coach. His record speaks for itself. Yes, Nick Saban's the GOAT. I get that. But there are other good coaches in college football that can lead talented teams. And I think when you look at the talented program and culture that's been built at Alabama, Kalen DeBoer is the guy that'll be able to step in and fill those shoes pretty quickly. Not saying he's going to live up to what Saban was, but his record, again, it speaks for itself. I have Texas at large, Alabama at large, Oregon at large. The Big Ten, it's a coin flip for me between Ohio State and Oregon when it comes to who's going to win the conference. Ohio State, I think, wins it. McCord, Ryan Day, they're loaded. Oregon is loaded as well. The problem is they both can't win it. Somebody's got to lose. The Big Ten this year, I'm excited about. I think it's going to be one of the more fascinating Big 12 conferences we've seen. At the top, it's very top heavy. I have Miami also getting in the college football 12-team playoff. The reality of it is Miami never sniffs the 4-team playoff, and I don't think they would have sniffed the 4-team playoff this year. But just like I think the 12-team playoff is extremely great for coaches like Kalen DeBoer and James Franklin, I think it's a great situation for Miami. The way their schedule sets up, no Clemson. They have a good shot of seeing them in a championship game potentially. But I think regardless of what happens in that championship game, I think the Hurricanes are in. I think the Hurricanes are in 2024. I really do. They've got a good quarterback. They've got a schedule that sets up to where if they stumble once, they've got a good shot at getting in. As long as they don't stumble twice. They stumble twice, I don't know. Florida, A&M, Florida, and then Florida A&M, Ball State, USF, VT, and Cal. That's 6 wins off the bat, in my opinion, for Cam Ward and the Hurricanes. And they have a bye week. They go to a Louisville team who's underrated, in my opinion, in 2024. Tough back-to-back weeks at Louisville, and then you host Florida State. If you can get through that 2-game stretch on October 19th and October 26th, boy, are you sitting pretty. And I mean really pretty if you're Miami. Duke, Georgia Tech to follow. You get another bye, and then you have Wake and the Sisters of the Blind and Syracuse to end the season. I think Miami has a good shot to go to the ACC championship. I really do. I think they've got a good shot. I think their schedule sets up nicely. I worry about Louisville. I worry about Florida State. Florida, the first game of the year. 2 thoughts on that. Number one, I think that game should be the last game of the year for Miami. I think that should be the final game of the year for Miami. But I think they get past Florida to open the season. I really do. Florida's down. I think it'll be a good game. I think it'll be a good test to start the season for a new quarterback in Cam Ward, who I think will have a really good 2024 campaign, but I see Miami sneaking past Florida. Penn State, Ole Miss, Notre Dame. Those are my last 3 teams that I have getting into the college football playoff. Where's Missouri, you ask? I talked to Kelly Ford earlier about Missouri. Missouri's got to be in there, right? Well, it's a great question. However, only 12 can get in. 13 can't get in, right? Penn State, Missouri, and Notre Dame are 3 for me that could be on that line, on that border of missing the college football playoff. Penn State, as I said a moment ago, has not seen James Franklin get them over the hump, get them to that next step and where they need to be. 12-team playoff, it'll give them a little bit of hope. I don't know that they'll be in the final 6 or 4 or 8 or 4. I don't know that they'll win a game in the playoff. But Jackson Dart, Lane Kiffin, and Ole Miss, I don't want to say they're a lock to get in, but I think they do get in. I think their schedule is fascinating. I think Jackson Dart's one of the better quarterbacks in the country. And we talk about the 12-team playoff benefiting different programs. Obviously, it would benefit Ole Miss as long as they don't have a hiccup along the way. Ole Miss does not see Texas this season. So when you look at Ole Miss and their ability to get into the college football playoff, they start with Furman, Middle Tennessee State, Wake, Georgia Southern, and Kentucky. The first 5 games, Ole Miss is going to win. Then they go to Williams-Brice Stadium in Columbia. I think Ole Miss wins that game. They start 6-0. Here's where the stretch comes for Ole Miss, where I believe we'll see a 6-0 Ole Miss team really get tested. We'll find out if this Ole Miss team is legit or if they're the same old Ole Miss that we're used to, right? We'll find out if this team is a contender or a pretender beginning on August 12th. They go to LSU in Baton Rouge, who's preseason ranked number 13. Then they're off. Then they come back home, host number 16 ranked Oklahoma, Brent Venables. They're going to be good. I don't know how good. I think that's a winnable game, though, back to back. Both of those are winnable. I don't know that they both get in, though, or I don't know that they win both. The more I look at it, the more I like Missouri's schedule than I do Ole Miss. I'll say this. I like Ole Miss's team way better than I like Missouri's team. I like Eli Drinkwitz. I like Missouri. They're not to me Jackson, Dart, Lane Kiffin this year, but I still like them. My point is, though, they've got the favorable schedule in my mind. So Ole Miss, I think they'll be 6-0 going into LSU. They have LSU, Oklahoma, at Arkansas. That'll be a win. And then they host them Dogs. That'll be a loss. Then they're off, recover, put the Band-Aids on after the Bulldogs. Then they go to Gainesville. Ben Hill Griffin Stadium for Florida. They'll win that one, and they end the season with Mississippi State, as they always do. They win that one. So the 3 games that concern me for Ole Miss are Oklahoma, LSU, and Georgia. Now, I'll tell you this. If they go 2-0 against LSU and Oklahoma, in my mind, they're getting in the playoffs because a 2-loss Ole Miss should be in. If they lose one of those and then lose to Georgia, obviously they're not in the title game, so they'll only have 2 losses, but how does the committee view that team? That's my concern. The schedule in that October stretch, from October the 12th to November 9th, outside of the game in Arkansas, concerns me in a big way for Ole Miss. Even though I like their team, I like the quarterback, that's a tough stretch, right? How do they perform in that stretch will dictate if they get into the playoff or not. So, to recap, my teams that I have in the college football playoff: Georgia, Clemson, Ohio State, Utah, Boise State, because they're the highest ranked G5 in my opinion. 7 at-large teams: Texas, Alabama, Oregon, Miami, Penn State, Ole Miss, Notre Dame. Could you convince me to swap Ole Miss for Missouri? Yeah, I think so. Am I going to do it? I don't know. But I'm telling you, if you brought a strong enough argument, because Kelly Ford and I talked about this in the 4 o'clock hour, if you brought a strong enough argument, I think I would. I think I'd switch to, I think I could find a reason to switch Ole Miss and Mizzou. Notre Dame's intriguing. There's a few games they could slip up, but then again, how does the committee view Notre Dame not having won a championship out of a conference? I right now, gut feeling, think Notre Dame gets in, but where's Missouri? And me leaving Missouri out, it may be a mistake, but again, 12 gets in, not 13. And somebody's going to be left out, just like the 5th and the 6th last year. The 13th and the 14th this year are going to make a fuss. They're going to be on the outside looking in, feeling like they should have been on the inside looking out. Wesley Roberts on the Facebook stream chimes in and asks, how big does the playoff have to be for South Carolina to make it? Wesley. Oh, Man, that's terrible. How big does the playoff? I'm going to put that comment on the stream because that's a good comment. It's funny. If you're watching the stream, you see Wesley's comment now. He asked, how big does the playoff have to be for South Carolina to make it? Is that a trap question? Because I feel like it is. I feel like that's a trap question that I don't need to answer less than 24 hours before I have Shane Beamer on the show, right? It's funny. It'll get South Carolina fans stirred up, but I'm going to avoid that. I'm going to do what's best and take the high road there. That's funny, though. Thank you for tuning in on the Facebook stream. 173 people right now watching just on the stream. If you didn't know, if you listen to the show, well, we appreciate you listening, but every day you can watch. If you can put up with looking at my face every day, Diesel's face, we'll be back on Monday. You can watch the show live every day on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Fat Paid on the text line says it's going to have to be a 64-team tournament for USC to make it. There's your answer, Wesley. There's your answer. Fat Paid says it's going to have to be a 64-team tournament going March Madness. Big dance style, right? 419 chimes in on the text line. This may or may not be a Gamecock fan. How big does the playoff need to be if Clemson goes 4-4 in the ACC like it did last year? Yes! I love the banner. I love the back and forth. I love the question. You're right, Texter. You're exactly right. They did go 4-4. It'd have to be 20, maybe, when they finished last year in the season. 25, 30 teams. So, good question. I like the banner back and forth. That's what makes sports radio fun, right? The Clemson fans and the South Carolina fans. You know what, man? There's markets like in Columbia and in Clemson that do radio and do a good job. And they talk, obviously, all Gamecocks, right? Or the Clemson market, they talk Clemson. And they do great jobs. I just love being in a market in Greenville where it's a mixed bag. It is so much fun to be in a market that's a mixed bag because we do get to talk South Carolina. We do get to talk Clemson. We talk probably 50-50 of each, right? We do talk Furman and Wofford and other local teams. We talk high school football. But what makes being in a market like Greenville, Spartanburg so great is the banner back and forth between the fans. Because we have loyal Tolos who are Gamecock fans. We have loyal Tolos who are diehard Clemson fans. And we appreciate both of you. And we love the riff-raff. We love it. Let's see. Matt Kraft asked, hey, also ask Tolos how many teams make the fantasy playoffs or whatever you decide. I have to decide that too? Jeez, Matt Kraft. I make a league and there's 50 things that I have to decide about it. I don't know. What do you think? How many teams should make the playoffs in a fantasy league? I am for the what's best option. If it makes more sense for everybody to make it, that's what I'm for. If it makes more sense for, 8 to 10, I don't know. You tell me what makes most sense, right? Wesley says on the Facebook stream, we will circle up tomorrow after the interview. Yeah, that'd be best. That'd be best. Final segment of the show. We'll run through the Daily Wires and get you caught up on what's going on in the sports world one more time. Your last chance to get your thoughts in right here on the Fan Upstate.
on the Fan Upstate.
Final chance for you to get your thoughts in on the program. Reminder, tomorrow, Friday, Shane Beamer, 3 p.m. Well, you say, Cole, I thought the show starts at 3 p.m. Well, you'd be right. It does. And when Shane Beamer tells you he can do 3 p.m., you do 3 p.m. So that's what we're going to do. And we'll have the head football coach of the South Carolina Gamecocks join us on the program tomorrow. So appreciate you being a part of the program. If you like Wire to Wire, tell a friend or two about the show. Continue to grow the audience. We support you. You support us. We all support each other. 184 people in the live stream right now to end the program. Again, we're live every day on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, or X, whatever you're supposed to talk to, or whatever you're supposed to call it. Let's see. Texter says you also talk all college football. Go Buckeyes. That's right. We do. We don't just talk Clemson. We don't just talk South Carolina. Even Buckeyes for our Buckeye fans. I know we have several Buckeye fans in the audience. Buckeye Mike that we saw yesterday. Tolo Mike, who's a Buckeyes fan. We saw him at Local Q. We talk a little bit of everything. Reminder, NFL preseason week 2 begins tonight as the Eagles and Patriots face off at 7 p.m. Patriots are favored by 3 points, but as I said earlier, not sure who gambles on preseason NFL football. It's just kind of hard to predict. The Braves, well, not good news for the Bravos today. The 3-game win streak came to a soaring end. That's right. They lost 6-0 to the Giants. Not good. I thought the Braves today could maybe complete the 4-game sweep. But again, it's the Braves. I said it in the very, I believe the second segment of the show today. A 3-game stretch. It's nice. 3 wins in a row. Yay. Nothing to call home to mama about because they will find a way this season to screw it up, right? They have this weekend the Angels, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The Bravos are off on Monday and then begin a series with the first place team in the division, Philadelphia Phillies, on Tuesday. So there's that. FedEx St. Jude Championship began today. Round 1 already in progress in Memphis, Tennessee. Also going on today, this weekend, for a few more days, the Little League World Series. Games today were at 1, 3, 5, and again at 7, all on ESPN. So if you're a fan of the Little League World Series, which I know a lot of our Tolos are, I asked the question earlier, how interested are you in the World Series? And we had a few texters say, yeah, I'm interested. Let's see. Wesley on the Facebook stream fires back at the South Carolina Gamecock fan and says, big talk from the 419 when you win one time the last decade against Clemson. Madcraft, every time you mention the Braves in a positive manner, it backfires. That is completely true, Madcraft. You're right. And that's why I said a few weeks ago we should just quit talking about them, right? Don't bring them up. We're 6 games back, probably 6.5 after tonight. But you're right. We talk about them, we praise them, and then they go and they lose. Hopefully they can take care of the Angels. The Angels aren't good. They should take 2 of 3, but we'll see. In case you missed it yesterday, the New England Patriots traded away linebacker Matthew Judon. Well, he went to Atlanta. What did the Falcons have to give up to get Judon, you ask? They had to give up a 3rd-round pick. That's all? Yep, that's all. Basically, the Falcons got Matthew Judon for free. And that's a big pickup for Atlanta. They're stacking players, and if, I don't know what will happen with Penix and Cousins, but Falcons aren't going to be a bad team this year. Also, some sad news out of the NFL yesterday. Quarterback J.J. McCarthy out for the 2024 season after meniscus surgery. That just blew, man. J.J. McCarthy was showing some promise, was showing a little bit of a little bit of improvement as a rookie quarterback, thinking, hey, maybe this is the guy that does get Minnesota over the hump. And I was pulling for him. I'm a J.J. McCarthy fan, but that's tough news for him. So Excited to have you along on the show tomorrow. Appreciate you listening today. We will do it again tomorrow, starting off at 3 p.m. with head football coach of the South Carolina Gamecocks, Coach Shane Beamer, all right here on the Fan Upstate.